now. We want Moshiach now. We want Moshiach now. We don't wanna wait. We want Moshiach now. We want Moshiach. Pula, ya mama, 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 ya mama, ya na 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 everybody, ya na 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 na, ya na 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 na, ya na 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 na, ya na 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 na, ya na 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 na, ya ma 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 ma, ya ma 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 ma, ya ma 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 ma, ya na 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 na.
A gute Woche. There's a lot of very stimulating entertainment for you this evening by Abi Piamenta. We're very honored and privileged that he was able to grace us with his presence. He's a very busy person with a very hectic schedule. And therefore I'm sure that we will all benefit greatly and be stimulated by his music and by his singing. But we also have a serious part as well, so there will be a few speeches, droshes, because we've got to take something away from the Congress Moshiach. And therefore I hope that you will all be as quiet during the droshes as you will be during the singing. Without further ado, I want to call upon Rabbi Shway, Rov of Lutenshul, Shliach of the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach in England, to say the Rebbe's Kapitel, and I would ask you all to stand.
David Baruch Nafshi Sadinoi V'Chokro Vayas Shem Kodshoy Baruch Nafshi Sadinoi V'Atish Kivichol Gemulov Asileach L'chol V'Neichi Aroi V'Lechol Tachloichi Agoyel Mishachas Chayechi Amadrichi Chesed V'Rachamim Amatzbiya Batei Vedich Tischadish Kaneshen Roichi Oizitz Dokei Sadinoi Mishpatim L'chol Ashukim Yedi Adarach of the Moshe L'Bnei Yisrael L'Leiso Rachum V'Chanun Adinei Harpayim V'Rav Chesed Lo L'Netzach Yariv L'Loilem Yitoir Lo Yichachatoinu Asalonu V'Licha V'Niseinu Gamal Aleinu Ki Chigveya Shamayim Alo Etzko V'Chazi Al Yireyo Ki Chig Mizach Mimayr V'Yichik Mimenu Es B'Sheinu Ki Rachim Avalbonim Richamadinoi Al Yireyo Ki Yodizinu Zocha Ki Yofer Anachnu Eno Ishke Chotzi Yomov Kitzitz Asode Ken Yotzitz Ki Ruach Over Boi Veinenu V'Leyakirenu Eid Mekoimoi Chesed Adinei Meilom Adeilom Al Yireya V'Tzitkos Elif Nevanim Shem Rivri Seim V'Zoich Fikudov L'Chaseisam Adinei Vashamayim Echin Kisei U'Malchusei V'Akel Mashallah Baruch Hu Adinei Malach Giberei Chayachei Sidavar Elishmei Abekel Dvarei Baruch Hu Adinei Kol Mat Kol Tzvav Mishar Zavei Siritzoinei Baruch Hu Adinei Kol Matzav B'chol Mekoim Esmem Shaltei Baruch Hu Nafshi Sadinoi
Rabbi Shway. We're going to be serving the meal now, so you'll be able to eat without any distractions or any speeches. But just a few words. Motzei Shabbos, time for stories which you'll hear later. But I think it's important to reflect on the last few days. We were for bringing here this morning till 5 o'clock in the morning. It's hot stuff. But it's only good if you have something to take away from it. You know, you can talk, and we've all been given the shlichus, a clear directive from the Rebbe Melech Moshiach that we have to prepare the world lekabel pnei Moshiach tzidkenu. Reb Levi Yitzchok Ginsburg, mashpia in Eretz Yisrael, when he was here the last time, he told me that he heard from Reb Mendel Futterfass. Reb Mendel told him that there was a place in Russia where the inhabitants of this town, their main panosa, their main livelihood, was producing honey. And the way to produce honey is to get bees, and the bees produce the honey. But of course, they were very worried that if they make the beehives where the beehives are usually kept, there will be plenty of people coming along and stealing the honey. So they decided a way of avoiding this problem was to set the beehives on the top of the trees. So that was well out of the reach of anyone who wanted to take them. One animal that they had not reckoned with was the bear. The bear is a very large animal, but he is very agile. He can climb up the trees. And because he has got very thick fur, if the bees were going to come and sting him, it would have no effect. And therefore he was able to plunder the beehives and steal all the honey. So the inhabitants of the town got together and they decided, you know, we have to do something to defeat the bear. But what can we do? I mean, it's an enormous animal and we are powerless against him. So they decided on a tactic. The tactic was that they took one large branch of the tree and they bent it in two and they positioned it in such a way like a catapult that if the bear was to come and steal the honey, the branch would fly in his face. And that's exactly what happened. The bear climbed up the tree, and as he put his large paw to get the honey, the branch hit him in the face. Now, the bear is not a very clever animal. And the bear thought to himself, a chutzpah, being hit in the face by the branch. So what happened? He hit the branch back. And the branch, when the branch was hit, came back with an even fiercer blow to the bear's face. What happened at the end? The bear forgot all about the honey, that was his goal, that's what he had every intention of taking. And he started to have a fight with the branch. Let me tell you, the branch won. Because the branch came and gave him such a zetz in the face that he fell off the tree and he lay on the ground. The inhabitants of the town quickly came and they surrounded the bear. They killed him. They took the schmaltz and they were able to earn money from it. They took his fur and they sold it. and he didn't have a very pleasant ending. So Remendel says as follows. He said, we all have a shlichus to do, and everybody knows it. But what happens? We get distracted by a branch. Well, you know, it's unbelievable the number of times, even within our very close community here, where things get mentioned to us, things get we get sidetracked, and we all fall into the hole. We all start to fight with a branch. So I would like to propose that from now onwards we do not fight with a branch, but we concentrate on the goal. And the goal is Hiskalas Melech HaMoshiach, which will be taken from Yad Mamish. But it is not going to be achieved if we don't do anything. We have to work, and we have to work hard on it. We mustn't let the Rebbe down. And therefore, I hope and I pray that this will be the final Moshiach Congress in Golus, and that next year we will all be in the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi with the Rebbe Melech HaMoshiach, and that we will all singing together Yechia Dineinu Moireinu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMoshiach La'olam Voed. Enjoy your meal.
to hear you. כץ מצאצאי האדמו"ר הזקן. He's from the family of the Alter Rebbe, גלעד כץ. And everyone join. Am Israel Evlo, Mashiach will be here this year. Am Israel Evlo, Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we don't want to wait. We want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we don't want no way. Everybody, Am Israel Evlokim Mashiach will be here. Am Israel Evlokim Mashiach will be here. We want, we want, we want, we don't want to wait. We want, we want, we want. Just a minute. I want you to prove me that chabad in England is not called like England. We want, we want, we want, and we don't want to wait. And we want, and we want, and we want, and we don't want to wait. We want, and we want, and we want. Mashiach will be here. Mashiach will be here. And we don't want to wait. We want, and we want, and we want, and we don't want to wait.
Avi, thank you very much. A special thank you as well to your very accomplished partner, Gilad Katz. Midvar Malchus, I'd like to call upon Rabbi Daniel Kahn, Rav Beis Menachem in London, to address the Malach Malka and say a few words. Rabbi Kahn.
Gute Woche. Right. The Rebbe speaks often about Hakoras HaToif. By the last Verbringen on Thursday night, our Rosh Hashanah, he thanked everybody else who helped making this event reality. I know that we all agree that we owe a very, very big yashikoyach to our esteemed Rosh Hashanah. To make such an event is a tremendous work. And I know that there are many, many places who are actually jealous on our Rosh Hashanah. And we should all give a big yashikoyach to Rabbi Cohen for putting this event for us. I must tell you that this Moshiach Congress is a very special one. This is the first time in my life that I actually heard a bas koil. Today by the Verbringen, a few times I was zeiche to hear me'achure haparkot, there came out a bas koil. And that is something which is well worth to come to the Moshiach Congress from. We're not used to that, but wow, what a gilui. In any case, there's the famous story about the Yeshuvnik who gets a letter and he cannot read, so he asks the Melamed who is able to read, and he reads it for him, and the Melamed, he doesn't cry, even though it's a very, very sad message which is in the letter. But the Yeshuvnik, he gets all excited and he's crying away. And the question is, how come? The Melamed, he is the one who's the expert, and he gets the news before the Yeshuvnik. But why is it? Because and that is something which is very pertinent. It's very nagea for us here when we have this Congress. There's a story, I don't know the details, about a little girl in Antwerp where the parents, they went away and she had to stay by somebody else. And the parents arranged her Shabbos clothes and everything. But after they had left, she got frantic because she didn't know, in case Moshiach is coming, which dress is she going to wear? The parents are gone. It's a mishpache, Lubavitcher mishpache was the left with Moshiach. And that is something which we have to pay attention to. I must tell you, many people, they have problems with Yechi. I was personally present, Gimel Tammuz, in New York. And there's no problem with it. Adarabe, it's actually even better when one was present there to see Yechi. Some people who are not there, they can, let's say, be Moshiach das from it. But if you're there, lemaise, and there was a kvura, there was a whole ceremony taking place, and nevertheless, you say Yechi, that is bringing out a statement, that is publishing something. And I must tell you also that there are whole shilas, what is emes and what is sheker. Many people don't really know the Torah definition of emes and sheker. The Rebbe spoke at great length about it in Toshin Mem Aleph, in two siches, and one is Chof Menachem Av, and one was Pashas Ekev. And emes is something which furthers Torah and Yiddishkeit. Sheker is the opposite. And we have spoken about it many times, that there are people who are afraid to take the step. I've had such shilas that people say, what are we supposed to do? We have the Rebbe Shaliach, he is the official leader for Chabad here in United Kingdom. Are we supposed to open our doors for the message for Beis Moshiach or not? And as a Rav, I only know one place where to look when we get such a shaila, and that is in Shulchan Aruch. In Shulchan Aruch, there is a halacha which deals with this. In Siman Tov Pei, Seif Dalet. So the Alter Rebbe says there the following din. Noihagin loimer shefay chamascha koidim shemaschil leilonu. That there is a minhag that we open up, we say shefay chamascha before we say leilonu. And then the Alter Rebbe says, u'paischin hadeles, we open the door, kedei lizkar shehu leil shimurim. In order to remember that it's leil shimurim. Ve'ein misyarin mishum davar. And we are not afraid for anything. Ubizchus emunah zu yavai Moshiach. And in schus of this emunah, Moshiach will come. This is the only place in the whole Shulchan Aruch which we have that the Alter Rebbe mentions Moshiach. And what is the message the Alter Rebbe says to us here? That one does not have to be afraid of shum davar. There's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. It's not an invention of the Alter Rebbe. The Ramah says the same. But for us, when the Alter Rebbe quotes this, the Alter Rebbe says, we open the door and we take in the message. And as the Rebbe says in Hayom Yom, that when Mashiach will come, then Yemolt wird Menschen Benken nach die Golus Tag. When the time comes and Moshiach will be Niskale, many people will say, why didn't we realize the opportunity which we had? Why didn't we make use of those days? And as the Rebbe says in another Hayom Yom, when legt man es up? What are you delaying it for? What are we waiting for? You have, for example, sometimes you have a Gadol Hadoya, he lives in one city and he moves later to another city. And then people say, well, we didn't realize he was such a great man. Why didn't we make use of it? The point is, we are now in these days where it's up to us to bring Moshiach, so what are we waiting for? Now I want to finish up with one practical suggestion, because it is important always there should be a bechein. And it's a suggestion, it's a method which has been tried and it actually worked. The Rebbe is always stressing the need to send in a duch to the Rebbe. That one should send in regularly, weekly, monthly, everybody according to their system, a duch. What I would suggest is that every one of us should keep a cheshbon, write down what our efforts are in order to bring Moshiach. Push it, write down how much are you learning in Yonah Moshiach Geula, how much are you dealing with other people, are you learning your chitas, you have to learn Masechta Gemara every year, all these things are nageya. These are things which we are told that we have to do. And not only to write it down, to send it to the Rebbe. How? Put it into the ikrais, fax it, whatever, everybody has their system, how they communicate to the Rebbe. But a person should write down lemaise on a piece of paper, what did I do today? What did I do this week? And send it to the Rebbe. And I personally would be embarrassed if I tell the Rebbe, well, I did learn a sikh, well, I didn't really learn it, I was sitting in shul, I heard somebody else learning, so midem is my yoitze. That is not what we as the Rebbe's shluchim, as we as those who come here and base Moshiach, can be yoitze too. We have to do our share, we have to report to the boss, we have to report to the Rebbe, it has to be a report which is the Shemus Iferes, and if we try to do that, then we, in Yirtzeh Hashem, will do our step to bring the Gilui of Mashiach now. L'chaim.
Grossi Yeshkoyach Rabbi Khan, for your warm words. Now, without further ado, I'd like to call upon Rabbi Zusha Zibelstein, Shliach of the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach in Montreal, Canada, to address the Lach welcome. Rabbi Zibelstein.
I'm quite surprised, Daniel. Excuse me, Morat Asra, that you were surprised to hear a Baskel today. After all, it is a Moshiach Congress. It's a Shabbos Moshiach Dik. And for what we know is that Moshiach is coming with Chus Noshim Tzidkonias. So if that's what it is, it's only normal that we should hear a Baskel. And actually, I would maybe recommend. What? If that was very good. Actually, I would maybe recommend that we shouldn't just hear the Baskel, we should listen to it. Can't hear me? That we should listen and hear what this Baskel is saying. I'm not referring particularly to the one we heard today, but to the, with no personal offense here, but to Bechlal, to the concept of the Baskel. As we know, it says, B'schus Noshim Tzidkonias Nigula V'seinu Mitzrayim. And ki meitzeis chol meretz Mitzrayim arenu niflois, as the Rebbe emphasizes many a time, that the same process, similar events, similar realities as was as Yitzis Mitzrayim will live today, will live in a time of Geula. So we have where it says that we came out of Golus in the schus of the Noshim Tzidkonias, and then we also find that b'schus ha'emunah, in the merit of emunah, of faith. Emunah is the koyach. Emunah is the vehicle which takes it out of Golus. And I don't think it's obviously not a contradiction that where it says b'schus emunah, that it says b'schus Noshim Tzidkonias, because I think what the particular quality, the particular aspect of the Noshim Tzidkonias was and is their emunah, as we had the opportunity to speak Thursday night. And unfortunately, we're still here tonight and talking about it again, rather than being ready after the Gula. But I think the Motzei Shabbos is not a time, at least on my part, for speeches. I don't mean to chas v'sholem indicate or give advice to anybody else who is later on or earlier on the program. But I would like to share with you a story. As we know, the three Lavdavkis about Motzei Shabbos, a story. And it's a story which to me became a Ma'aser Rav. A Ma'aser with a major message, a major teaching. Very possible I shared with you in the past. But as I said before, to me, as I just said, to me this became Pashut, a message by which one should live, and in particularly today in our present situation. As we know, a shliach of the Rebbe is not one that has one specific job description. And the shliach of the Rebbe is not one that should have certain hours when he is doing his shlichus. Shliach is something which we have to try to emulate the Rebbe, which means on call 24 hours. And whatever the need is, whatever the requirements are, we cannot say that this is not for me, we have to do it. So as such, of the different aspects and facets of our shlichus, one of them is also dealing with people behind bars. And I don't mean a drinking bar, but this is obviously definitely part of it. But in this particular case, I'm referring to Pashut, people who unfortunately are in jail. And I get very inspired from the different opportunities that we have and different people we meet in these circumstances. A few years ago, you can't hear me. How come I hear you so well? Maybe that's the reason. Bin hier doch nicht schuldig. A few years ago, I get a phone call. I think it was in the beginning of Chodesh Elul. There's a person who came into jail Erev Shabbos. I got that phone call on Sunday. And the person is asking and begging to get a pair of tefillin. And by the way, would appreciate some kosher food too. And it was really emphasizing more the tefillin than the kosher food, because the kosher food he was getting already. Because if anybody has to sit in jail, Montreal is the best place. So I just want to share this with you. We need more customers. So this person is really frantic over the phone through somebody else. Please come and bring me a pair of tefillin. So I go immediately to the jail, and there I can say, Baruch Hashem, I made it in life. I actually have a key. Not to the main door, but inside I have a key to one of the doors of the jail. Baruch Hashem, I accomplished something in life. And I was a little surprised. I see the sharit, lange Beis, and needs a pair of tefillin. In fact, it's not, remember, this is not New York. We don't see this on a regular basis, Baruch Hashem. It was a really unusual sight to see a Hamish see the sharit in jail. I figured Mistame, he didn't say Yechi, so they locked him up. Only in London this could happen, right? Das ist die Davis Israel, Nachschen, für dir. Akita, I put on film with him. Was basically an issue from immigration issues. Supposedly. Bachlal, I never ask what they're there for, because they don't say the truth anyway. What's the point? Why make it uncomfortable? And I really make a point not to ask. And if a person wants to tell me, I say, look, I'm going to charge you for confession. So you might as well just leave it at that. Because I'd rather not know. We want to help him, and that's what the Rebbe tells us. And with eine Fort Gashwis, die mention, when we start hearing certain stories, we might get a little biased and not want to help him. So will ich wissen. As I know, Fati, that's all I can. Anyway, I had to go to this person every day because they were not allowed to keep a pair of tefillin in this particular jail. So I went to him on a daily basis, bring him Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, und Atalis mit der Torah, and we became quite close, good friends. Tried to help him in different issues. Got involved with his family in New York, his brothers. And we were trying to see to help out this person. It was like a week before Rosh Hashanah, and the brother, whom I don't know besides over the phone, whose name is Leibel, and Leibel tells me, in Montreal. Fine. I figured he's coming to see his brother. He says, nein, ich fuhr zum Tosher Rebbe. He's going to the Tosher Rebbe to ask for a bracha, gesundheit. We tell him, don't go. Well, fine. We didn't have a chance to meet up that day, and the next day, Monday, I speak to him again, and I said, Leibel, what's happening? Because I know he has to go to court. So he says, I was by the Tosher Rebbe, he says, and I went with my lawyer, in fact. He took his New York lawyer with him. And they discussed with the Tosher Rebbe the case, and the lawyer said what he's planning to plead. And the Tosher Rebbe told him, no, that's not a good idea, he should say something else. I don't even know why I asked, but in a very naive way I asked him, so what are you planning on doing? Are you planning to listen to the Tosher Rebbe, or are you planning to do what the lawyer tells you to do? Said, the lawyer weiß doch besser. The lawyer obviously knows better. So I was taken back by this, not because, trust me, I'm not a Tosher Chassid, believe me. But I say, Leiblich verstehe nicht. I understand. Why did you go to your Rebbe? It cost you a fortune, because the Tosher Rebbe doesn't give dollars, by the way. He takes, he doesn't give. Van noch nicht gehört, ist okay. Nehmen ja, Baruch Hashem, wie so Kupchik, also mit der größeren Hand. Right? So, So I said, I don't understand. If you had no intention listening to him, why did you go? If you only wanted a bracha, you could have asked him over the phone. It would cost you much less. Why did you have to schlep your lawyer? The lawyer doesn't travel for free. It's $300 an hour US. Even now that the dollar is not so strong, it's still quite a substantial sum of money. Why did you have to do the whole exercise? So he asked me, was Reb Zishi then geworden a Tosher Chassid? So I no, over my dead body. But I'm not, trust me. But I don't understand. If you are a chassid, as a chassid I'm asking you. As a chassid, how can you not listen to your Rebbe? Anyway, we got into a whole conversation about Emunas Tzadikim, Emunas Yoramunin, your Rebbe. And then he tells me, wait, Reb Zishi, the man sich jetzt am Maße. I just remember a story in the Chmizes Hachtetzeit. I have to tell you the story. I said, go ahead. It's my long distance call. But trust me, the story was worth more than the nickel that it cost me. And he tells me the following. I was about 12 years old, he says. There were 4 brothers and 1 sister. When I was about 12 years old, we used to live in Crown Heights. What part of Crown Heights? They used to live St. John's and Rochester, which even at that time was already more or less, every street was called like dead end, sort of. And it was a very rough neighborhood already at that time. There were very few Jews left in the area. His family was there and a few more families, and his mother was the one who was keeping that Haifa Yidden together, the few Jews that were still left over there. And there was one kosher Jewish grocer left in the area. And this grocer decided that it's time to close the store. Why? There were very few customers. And most of the customers that came in, he didn't really appreciate their patronizing this store. Somehow they were not most friendly and not paying really on time, and he really didn't appreciate having them as customers. But his mother, he said, would always impress upon him the importance. He can't leave, you must stay because everybody depends on you, and so forth and so forth. One day he says, this grocery man told, there was an alter Polish Riedel, sehr poshet, very simple person. And one day he tells her, I said, you do have a Krieger Rebbe in the Gegend. I heard there's a smart Rebbe here in the neighborhood, and I'm going to ask his advice. And whatever he is going to tell me, I will do. She was not very happy about it because she was a fervent Satmar Chassid. But what could she do? Fine. He got himself Yechidus. He came to the Rebbe, and he tells the Rebbe his situation. That he wants to close the store, he wants to retire, and that's it. So the Rebbe asks him, why do you want to close the store? So he says, because I don't need it. I don't need the store. So the Rebbe says, could be you don't need it, but others need you. And the fact that others need you overrides your needs. That's more important. Then he tells the Rebbe, I'm simply afraid. Es kommen dort nach einer solcher Chevre, and they're threatening and they're dangerous, and they come visiting they pay with different currencies, and bullets flying is not the most pleasant sight. And he says, I'm afraid to be in the store. So the Rebbe tells him, "You have nicht was zu mehr, aber es hat auch gar nicht geschehen. You have nothing to be afraid of. Nothing will happen to you. Gate, stay in your store." The Rebbe gave him a bracha. He's a simple Jew. He came asking with intention of listening. So he came back to the store. He threw himself into again full-fledged into the store. He repainted, he stocked it, and the Rebbe told him to stay. So she was happy, and my mother, label says, was happy that Baruch Hashem, the Rebbe hat sie getroffen, sie hat gewohnt. And she's very happy. And since then, he says that my mother always gave us money every day when we would go from St. John's and Rochester to Williamsburg to the Satmar Cheder by bus. They would always stop in that store to buy something, to support the store. And this was something we all enjoyed, by the way, he says. One day, I come back from Cheder. Label tells me. He's coming back from Cheder, and he knows he has to go through the store to buy something, and the street is barricaded. The whole street is police barriers. No, was hat man gemacht, a barricade? The only purpose why there's a barricade is so a kid should be able to jump over. That's the only reason why a child can imagine why would it be a barricade. So in no time, I'm the other side of the barricade, and I find out what's happening. I go to my favorite store, and the place is full with police inside the store. And I realize what happened. Says label, and I overheard a conversation between the policeman and the storekeeper. And the policeman asked this grocery man what happened. So he speaks in his English and says, two schwarze people came into the store and they told me I should give them my money. So the policeman asked him, so what did you do? I told him that this is not a gemach. Sorry, du verkaufst, but du nicht, gib mir nicht kein Geld. Over here, we don't give money over here. Here we sell merchandise. Right? So he says, so what happened then? I told them they should leave my store because I will not give them my money. So he said, and what happened then? So they didn't want to go, so I told them, if he will not go, I will call the police. So the police says, so then? So they told me, if I will call the police, we're going to shoot you. Leibel says, I'm listening to this conversation, and I'm quite flabbergasted. It sounds like an exciting story, he says. And so what the policeman asks him then, so what did you do? You goyim, you came, right? Who called you? I called you. Go, you should call. I mean, I called you, so obviously you know what happened. So the policeman says, hold it. The guy, so what happened? And their label tells me, let me open the parenthesis, he says, the two most expensive items that this storeman had in his store were cigarettes and cans of tuna. That was his most precious items that he had. These he kept right behind him on the shelves. On the shelves. This was the most precious thing to which he was attached emotionally. So says Leibel, before I continue the story, says Reb Zisha, this is 40 years ago about, I can still see the image. And I counted them. 12 bullet-ridden tuna cans. I can still see these tuna cans dripping. That's how fresh it was. And this is right behind, literally behind where the man is standing. There was no bulletproof windows. It was just a small desk, small counter of a store. And the policeman is completely in shock. I mean, he says, I don't understand you. They were shooting at you. Did you ever see a gun in your life? Do you know that what? Sicher was meist, ich weiß, what this is. Sure, I know what it is. So, if I wouldn't know what it is, would I call you? You know. So finally the policeman asks him, and he says, weren't you afraid? Hey, the man is standing, the two people standing with guns in your face, and you're not afraid? So he says, no, I wasn't afraid. Why? Sagt der Riedel, because the Lubavitcher Rebbe told me that nothing will happen to me. So I'm not afraid. So Label tells me, this story comes back to me now. I understand now, after we've had an hour conversation about Emunah, Emunah's tzaddikim, he says, now I understand what this man experienced. I told Abel, I can't say that I'm happy your brother's sitting in jail for me to have heard that story, but thank you for telling me the story. And although it cost me like an hour and a half a long distance phone call, let's think about it for a moment. Obviously the man knew what these guys are capable of doing, because that's why he wanted to close the store. That's why he went to ask a bracha. Yet, when he heard from the Rebbe, and he did not learn neither in Otvotsk or in Lubavitch, he has no idea what Chassidus is, and he doesn't really know what a Rebbe is. A Poshet Riedel. But he knows one thing. If the Rebbe told him that he has nothing to be afraid of, then these guns facing his face, these guns that could kill tuna fish, and for that matter living two-legged people too, to him it's not a scare. Him it cannot affect. Him it cannot hurt. Because to him these guns are not real. What is his reality? What does he see? When he sees supposed danger facing him, he doesn't see danger. What does he see? The Rebbe's words. He knows the Rebbe told him that he has nothing to be afraid of, and nothing will happen to him, so nothing will happen to him. And these guns are not real. Why am I saying that this became to me a message? The Meiser Rav. When the Rebbe tells us that we have to start living in the Geula reality, that we have to open the eyes and see Geula. One asks a question, and when I open my eyes, what do I see? When I look around me, or when I look at myself, I see Geula. What do I see? So the Rebbe, depends how you look. It depends what is your reality. It depends what your perception is, what your reference is all about. Says the Rebbe, start looking differently. How? So the Rebbe mit darf lernen in Yonah Moshiach HaGeula. And the Rebbe doesn't say that we should learn in Yonah Moshiach HaGeula because this will hasten the Geula. The Rebbe said this in the past, but here the Rebbe says a different Nekuda. The Rebbe says, I'm darf lernen in Yonah Moshiach HaGeula as the Jahr in Tereshe B'Ksav, Tereshe Balpeh, und bis Lekute Siches von der Siderenu. So the Rebbe says that by learning in Yonah Moshiach HaGeula, our perception will change. Our reality will change. And we will be able to appreciate that what is emes. You were speaking about emes. What is emes? Emes is not this which we see with the naked eye, but emes is this which the Rebbe says it is. Since the Rebbe says that Mezetche Moshiach Puruleisov Mitziyuse, we already see the reality of Moshiach, we have to understand that this is reality. Ich seh nicht. Wie ze even met de eigen, says the Rebbe, wie ze even met de eigen. Says the Rebbe, connect to me. Learn lekute sichos for the Sidorenu. Connect to me. Become one with me. You will start seeing differently. And just to conclude, the Rebbe brings in a Sikha an interesting discussion. Discussion, a Breise. Verliert beglaat die ganze Jiddische Sprache. Regarding the Shira, where it says, Vayomru leimoyim. And the Rebbe brings a Breise in Seta that are Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Lozer, Rabbi Yesi, Rabbi Nechemia. Leimoy, which means, as we know, they responded. How did they respond? Says Rabbi Akiva, that every pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu said, they said one thing: Shiro Lashem. Steht Shiro Lashem vayomru leimoyim. The whole Shira, it says pasuk b'pasuk, pasach Moshe, and they said Shiro Lashem. Whatever Moshe Rabbeinu said, Shiro Lashem. Rabbi Lozer says no. That they responded each pasuk. Moshe Rabbeinu said the whole pasuk, and then they responded the whole pasuk. Comes Rabbi Nechemia says no. Pasach Moshe Rabbeinu started, and then they said together with Moshe Rabbeinu, Ruach HaKodesh, they received at that time Ruach HaKodesh, and they were said together with Moshe Rabbeinu the whole Shir. So there's a lengthy sikh over there, but just one nekuda which I want to bring out over here tonight. Rabbi Nechemia says, there comes a moment, as the Rebbe says, after Arboim Shana, there comes a point that we have to be able to say together with Moshe Rabbeinu, of this Shira, even in a time where we don't hear the Sikha from the Rebbe directly with our own ears, where we don't see Begashvis Moshe Rabbeinu say the Shira so that we should be able to respond to Shira Hashem, there comes a moment where we have to be able to say it with Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, say exactly this which Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, that we don't necessarily hear with our Gashmisdiki ears, but be able to say it. How can we say it, says the Rebbe? How can we be at such a level to be able to say this which Moshe Rabbeinu says? What is the Nechama? What is Rabbi Nechemia saying to us? That we should be able to say it by Pasach Moshe, by being connected completely and fully to Moshe Rabbeinu. Ashleim is the Kiskashus, as the Rebbe said in the Sikha. Ani maimin b'emuna shleimo. How can we have shleimo, says the Rebbe? As a gesagt sich as a leicht. Ani maimin b'emuna shleimo. There's a Sikha from the Rebbe Chafal, Tashi Yud Gimel. Wie can we do sagen, ani maimin b'emuna shleimo? I have shleimus. Who has shleimus? So the Rebbe shleimus comes by being mekusher to the Rebbe. We can get to that. So the time that we are reaching now, the time that we are experiencing now, is this emunah. What means emunah? Emunah is a time where we have no explanations. Till Chav Zayin Od hat man gehabt explanations, bis Gimel Tammuz hat man gehabt Biurim, all kinds of explanations. Echeshboines, Hazeh und Ahin. The Rebbe says, no, have pure emunah, not seichel. B'schus emunah nigalav isenu. B'schus nashim tzidkon is because they applied their emunah. They didn't apply cheshbonis and seichel and so forth. The Hesach Das, says the Rebbe, means above Das, higher than Das, higher than knowledge, higher than understanding. How do we do this? Sagt the Rebbe, learn in Yana, Moshiach and Gula from the Sidorenu. Pasha the total, complete discussions to the Rebbe. Can we sagen Ashir al Hashem? Sagt sich Ashir al Hashem. Because our emunah, what the Rebbe says, sagt the Rebbe, Ot, kum Moshiach. I begash mi sag das nicht. My reference has to be a punkt with the Pasha the Riedel. When he sees a gun which seems to be threatening, sagt zu mir hat das nicht. My reality is the Rebbe's Wörter.
darf man wissen that unsere reality, our reality is. And this is the world's reality because the Rebbe says so. And the reality is that Hine Zepo, darf man öffnen the Eden, binden sich zum Rebbe Beschlemmes. And there is no question that we will be able to sing wie der Rebbe schockelt mit dem Kopf und der Rebbe wird mitsingen und mittanzen, alle zusammen. Wo die greatest Achdus, Yechia, Denenu, Merenu, Rabbeinu, Melech, HaMashiach, Le'elam Voed.
Yafa. Umay Yafa. Umay Yafa.
Rabbi Silverstein, for your very warm words. I'd like now to call upon Rabbi Vatsal Kupchik, Shliach to the Rebbe Melech Moshiach in Pune, India, to give his greetings to the Melech Malka. Rabbi Kupchik.
ותבורך יחי אדוננו מורנו ורבנו מלך המשיח לעולם ועד, לחיים וחיים. קודם כל, ich bin gewesen sehr zufrieden und ich gewusst, also der größte Robi Dodo, הרב דניאל כהן, כאן, ich bin gewesen in Yeshiva in כפר חב"ד, ברמול gerufen, der משפיע, הרב מנדל פוטופס, und er gesagt, שיקום nach Bocher, sagte nicht verbringen, ich rede nicht offiziell. hat er mir gesagt, שיקום nach Bocher von der Yeshiva תיכונית, eint, und man darf im Karf sein, und er hat einen goldenen Kopf. Eiwes mir fragen, von wann weiß ich komme nicht da. Hat mir allein gesagt. Aber Kahn hat gesagt, als im ganzen Shulchan Aruch hat mir wie einmal Moshiach, ob ich verstanden weiß, ganz Shulchan Aruch hat mir. הרב כאן. אני היחידי שהבין את זה ככה. כל הכבוד. Das ist פשוט הנוהג hat sehr stark. Aber es trifft einmal, als Jeden, was wissen, sehr viel, und sie reden zu Jeden, was wissen, nicht sehr viel. Ob nicht einmal eine Schore, was jener kann verstehen, ich will ich ein bisschen Maslim sein, aber Turgeman. Er hat geredet, gab die Minen von Kvura und Chulu, פשוט, er hat gemeint, die Gemorre, was steht, gab Yaakov Avinu, die Gemorre fragt, Sof du Sofdayo, Chonto Chontayo, Kovro Komrayo, וממילא לכאורה כמן זוג מחד ושולם, אז זה היפך החיים, דגמור זוג ינקב אבינו למייס, אז זה נצרוף דגמור, הסתקה, אז ינקב נדמה להם שמייס. Das gewinnt mich damit, das erstens. Zweitens, Rav Zusha hat geredet wird, aber es hat der Mond, wegen dem Mädel, was hat gesagt, was ich mit dem Big Day Moshiach, die Eltern sind nicht da, aber es hat der Mann der Meiste, was ich gewinnt bei uns in Puna, der Indien, was die Kinder, als Titel beim Schichoi, was der Rebbe rettet sich stark, es gewinnt ein Chosheverit, sehr ein Chosheverit, was jetzt war Rav Silberstein nicht da, so ich nicht genommen, was ich komme fragen bei Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg, איך קוראים למלכות שלך, Ginsburg, der Mekubel, der Malach. Hat ihn gefragt, was für ein Mocker hast du auf dem, wo du sagst, mit dieser Starkheit, ich hier Adonenu, der Rebbe ist Chai Vekayom. Und ich bin sicher, אתם רואים להם רמק, weiß 400 שקל, was Avio gebracht. אתה לא מבין. הוא היה בטוח שהוא יביא לו את המאמר מהרמק, ניכסה וניגלה, חי, עוד דרך גזוק, אז באונס עם מקובל. אז מדף זן wie de Tmimim gehen. Und wo de Tmimim gehen, das ist der Emes. Das ist der beste Mocker. Und jener ist Aida, was ich nicht im Mund sein Namen, das ist Aida Grieser, aber Seichler Grieser und Reisa Sach. sagt זה המקור שלך? זה המקור הכי חזק. אז אל תיגעו במשיך למקוקת על דקליין הקינדר, בזה נשתוק עם חשבנס, זה עוד משכין פוליטיק, זה עוד משכין חשבנס, אפילו דקדושה, was sein mit dem Meisdes, was sein mit dem Geld, זה wissen, was ist Emes. Aber das hat der Mann damals was gewinnt bei uns. Bei uns in Rom Asach Sachen, Menschen meinen, das ist Aggressiv, ich muss nefesh, mir Asach Privilegies in Indien. Die erste Sache, man darf nicht zuwecken die Kinder in der Früh, weil keinmal, wenn sie mich verspätigen in Cheder. Gleich, wenn sie stehen auf, wenn sie in Cheder, ich weiß nicht, was darf man leben? Sie ist doch in Assaot, sie ist doch in das, wir stehen auf, gleich in Cheder. Ich schlafe in Cheder. Aber als in Matze, ich darf man sehen, Achutz von Lernen, so nicht mit wem zu spielen, Kinder von 12, 13 Jahren spielen mit Kindern von 4 Jahren, von 5 Jahren, von 6 Jahren, darf man sehen, trachten, all bescholach aller Poche steht, wegen Chinuch Kinder, was tut man? Die Kinder sagen, was zu tun? Und wir beschlossen, kaufen Oisoves Bno, a Zig mit der Baby-Zig. Ich weiß nicht, wie man sagt das auf Englisch. Und sie spielen. Der ganze Tag ist gut, aber bei Nacht, also die Kinder gehen schlafen, und die Ziegen, sie sind allein nicht, sie will nicht sein allein. Die Kinder haben gleich gedacht, was man tut, aber sie beschlossen, legen sie ein Tape mit chassidischen Igunim, dort unten in Chotzer. Ich meine, wenn sie meinen, als Menschen drehen Sachen, das ist nicht so geholfen ein bisschen. Aber der Tape endigt sich, und man sagt, ich hab jede meiste später, ihr versteht, ich stehe auf Stück nach Zos, danach bin ich sehr mit, ich höre nicht, was tut sich. Ich stehe von der Früh, so von der Simcha, was ist geschehen. 3 Uhr bei Nacht, haben die Kinder aufgestanden und gehört, Wenn sie gegangen sind oder quetschen dem Tape oder was, haben sie gesehen, dass das Baby ist entlaufen, vom Stub. Reis vom Chotzer und Reis. Und die Mama, sie schreit. Sie haben nicht aufgeweckt, die Tate Mama, sie gingen alleine suchen. 3 Uhr bei Nacht, im Gas von Indien, 2 jüdische Kinder gehen suchen dem Zieg. Einer gegangen, ein Block her, der zweite ein Block her, und man kommt zurück, der Zieg ist nicht tot. Der Engel von 10 Jahren weiß, dass da ein Problem schreibt in dem Reben. Ist gegangen, geschrieben ein Zettel, dem Reben, Rabbi Shlita, Melech HaMashiach, היה לנו איזה קטנה וחמודה. והיא נעלמה. הוא מבקש מהרבי שימצא את האיזה. Öffnet auf, legt rein in Igres und öffnet auf der Igres und sagt, der Rebbe schreibt, en להוציא לעז, חס ושלום. gewinnt sehr zufrieden, sie sind mir nicht gewinnt, was sagt dem Bruder, הרבי אומר, אין להוציא לעז, בוא נחפש את העז. הרבי אומר, אין להוציא לעז. הקיצר זה gehen noch einmal. Und שמייסי שואל לו, was לעז? לעז steht dort, לעז. Der Kind schreibt, weiß, was der Rebbe hat ihm geantwortet. Ich gehe noch einmal, einer her und einer hin. Und in mitten 3 Uhr bei Nacht fährt ein Bicycle auf Noah. Ein Indianer, setzt Kinder, kleine Kinder mitten in der Nacht, sagt er, stellt er, was tut ihr, sagt er, nevad lanu ez. Jener ist gekommen von Delhi. Delhi ist 2 Meter halben Tag vorn. Er sagt er, אחר כך הם סיפרו לנו, זה יצא gekommen von Delhi, und diese Kinder hat er gesagt, in jenem Zome, Junction, hat er gesehen, ein Mensch steht mit der Baby Isa. Er sagt, ich will den nehmen auf dem Bike und nehmen den Isa. Er kommt zu gehen, sagt man, der Goy Aschiker, sagt er, מה פתאום, זה שלי, das ist meine. Ein oder Goy gelaufen, gebringt der Policeman, und haben gesagt, von wann hast du das ein? Hat er genommen die Zieg, und die Kinder kommen daheim, reingelegt die Zieg zurück in Platz und gegangen geschlafen. In der Früh haben sie erzählt die ganze Meise. Aber ich wollte sehen, wo sie steht der S. Und bewiesen. Ich gebe ein Schmeichel, mein Freund, und er guckt, der Kind hat gehabt, dass sie las. Aber wenn er gesehen, der S, ich bin sicher, dass das ist. Und das ist einmal, tracht man, als bei einem Kind dieser Greis, aber das ist der MS. Hat geschrieben, dem Reben mit von Herzen. Und dem sie sind Negea. Und weiß, dass sie da ein Problem, was kennt sich nicht an ist, dann schreibt man dem Reben. Und mit mir hat gesehen, der Amtsführer, wie sie ist. Und zu dem ist gegangen noch einmal. Und zu dem, der Baal Shem Tov schreibt, als Agoi, sie gewinnen eine von der Milchome von 7 Jahren, von 14 Jahren, gedei von Truas der Milchome soll der Zadig oben anliegen, mit was zu singen und dienen dem Ebersten. Der Rambam schreibt, da viele nicht umkommen darf, geht es sich der Rambam schreibt, der ganze Ariches, als kein sein Mensch, ein größer Gewirr, und er hat nicht was zu tun, hat gebuht, der ganze Arme, der ganze Binnen, öfter wird einmal kommen dort Naid, ein Mensch, ein Chossid, und er sitzen dort und haben ein bisschen Menuchas Adas auf Lernen ein jüdisch Wort. Und das sagt man bei den Kindern, und wer sie will wissen, was der MS ist, soll sehen bei den Kindern. Was tut es auch bei den Kindern? Und Kinder wissen dem MS. Und ich will noch eine Sache endigen. Es ist da eine gedruckte Sache, ich denke nicht zum Punkt, wo das ist, vom Frieden gereben. Ich denke genau, auf euch wenig alle Brote. Aber es ist doch beim Schatz, wie das Kislev, wahrscheinlich Chassidus und Motzi Shabbos, und erzählt am meisten von Baal Shem Tov, steht vom Friedrich Rebens, Siperli, Ayoshish mit Ramsala. Etwas, ein Städtel in Russland. Drobomist. Ich sage der Ramsala, aber bei uns ist der Ramsala. Als hat gehabt dem Schuss, Ayoshish, hat erzählt der Friedrich Rebbe. Hat gehabt dem Schuss, Fahr Pesach, reinigen die Sforim von Tzemach Tzedek. Und bis er hat geöffnet die Sforim, hat gesehen ein Zettel, was Bichsav Yad von alten Rebbe. Dort steht, als לגבי אברהם אבינו עדות דייס in Medrash, wie viele Jahre ist gewesen, כשהכיר אברהם es Boiroi. Der Rambam schreibt, als התחיל לשייטת בדייתוי, ist gewesen 3 Jahre. Und noch schreibt Jahr 40, ist umgekommen zu der Akora. Bei Medrash steht, noch eine Sache früher, כל מיני דייס. Aber לגבי der Baal Shem Tov schreibt in Zettel, Akol Moidim ben Sholoi שהכיר אברהם es Boiroi. Also Baal Shem Tov ist geboren geworden, steht, als gegangen gleich oder ein paar Tage später כאחד האודום, und gewinnt 3 Monate und gerät כאחד האודום. Und als gewinnt 2,5 Jahre, das ist sehr interessant, weil der Nussach bederich klar weiß mit 4 oder 5 Jahren, ist die Tate, Rabbi Lezer ist weg. Und Pfarrer ist weggegangen, hat gesagt, sein Sohn, אל תירו מאף אחד, רק מהשם אחד. Und fleckt sich drehen in die Wälder. Und einmal gewinnt Leil Sar, der Geshem, eine sturmdicke Nacht. Und der Baal Shem Tov hat sich gedreht im Wald und hat gesehen einen größeren Armen, was sie gewinnt dort voll mit Leizonim, Chizenim. Und ist rein dort und sie haben gesagt, Ingele, aus die Schmere. Hat gesagt, ein Jahre mehr auf Echot, rak mehr Hashem Echot. Hat mir noch einmal gesagt, Ingele, sag, sei Meide, שאוזר Hashem es Oretz. Hat gesagt, Ispordu kol poyale Yoven. Und gleich geworden Ois, Lizonim, Ois Armen, sie geworden nur Adimien. Dennoch ist Achia Shileni, hat gelehrt Achia Shileni, was sie geworden mit Yetzi Mitzrayim. Und geworden der Rabbi von Eliyahu Hanovi. Hat gelehrt mit dem Sedes Ateire במשך 10 Jahren. Und hat dem Ois gelernt und übergegeben die alle Schemes von dem Eberst. Kurz von einem Namen. Hat ihm der Baal Shem Tov gesagt, was sie mit dem Namen. Und der Achia Shileni gesagt, Shem ze גם אני אין יודע. Mit dem Namen hat der Eberster übergegeben dem Samech Mem, und hat ihm geschickt, Machriv sein dem zweiten Beis HaMikdash. Und der Samech Mem hat gesagt, ich will nicht. Weil ich habe schon einmal Machriv gewählt und die Iden um 70 Jahre später aufgebaut zurück. Was bin ich? Schick Engel. Hat ihm der Eberster gesagt, mit den Neiser Masken. Als der Eberster hat ihm gegeben dem Namen, שבו יסידים לבנו es Beis HaMikdash, als sein בהם, wird sicher sein, als Iden können nicht bauen dem Beis HaMikdash. Und der Eberster ihm gegeben, dem Nomen. Ich sage, Chia Shileni, ich sage dem Baal Shem Tov, Shem ze gam ani eini yodea. Und der Baal Shem Tov gesagt, ani oitzi biloi mipiv. Ich will herausnehmen dem Shem von seinem Meul. Und dem Chia Shileni gesagt, was nicht machen, Arbei nisu venizoiku. Asacham geprüft friert und nie so geworden. Und der Baal Shem Tov gesagt, Chia Shileni, eini yore me'af echot, rak me Hashem echot. Und darauf gingen mit dem Samach Mem. Und der Samach Mem hat ihm gefragt, wer ist der, was hat mir darauf genommen auf der Welt? Weil zweimal von ganzen Brie bin ich darauf auf der Welt, einmal auf Machiv sein dem ersten Besamigdash und zweiten Mal Machiv sein dem zweiten Besamigdash. Und der Baal Shem Tov hat ihm gesagt, ein Yore me'af echot, rak me Hashem echot, ve oitzi biloi mipiv. Also hier steht die Zettel. Und hat gewollt, nehmen den Zettel für sich, der Chossi, der Yoshish, also die Zettel der Friedrike Rebbe. Ist durchgegangen dort, einer von den Kindern von Tzemach Tzedek, und ihm gesagt, dass sie schäppen dem Zettel, weil sie gewähnen der und der Chossi, was hat Meiti gewähnt, übergeschrieben, nicht genommen dem Zettel. Und gebracht daheim, und sie gewonnen als Reife, und die ganze Stube sich verbrennt. Und ich schreibe der Friedrike Rebbe. Hat kein Diver Arab. Aber getracht, was hat er getan, Baal Shem Tov, als er genommen mit dem Shem von Samach Mem, wo der Shem meint. Ist bepschittes, was wir wissen, als der Baal Shem Tov hat übergegeben dem Magid und der Magid hat übergegeben dem alten Reben, und als er geht das mit Dor le Dor, bis ist angekommen zum Reben Melech Moshiach. Und der Reben Melech Moshiach hat gesagt, ich sage nicht, als es ist Kablodaiti, aber er bepasst es. Das ist Atinik, on Chochmes. Das ist eine Sache, was hat man von dem, was geschrieben bei Baal Shem Tov in Meshbush? Oder wo? איפה Baal Shem Tov? Der Pshat ist, als der Rebbe hat es bekommen, mit allen Unionen, und der Rebbe hat angegeben dem Maimer, das ist jetzt die Zeit, das ist die 7. Dor. Und danach hat der Rebbe gesagt, Mo Israni es Einyan Aleichem. Der Rebbe hat nicht gesagt, Einyan. Und Chassidim umgeben, singen, Yechi Adoneinu, Moreinu, Rabbeinu, Melech HaMoshiach, Leilom Voed. Und wer sie will, ich will nicht als Gaon wie Arab Daniel, aber sie da als Tochna, als CD, wo sie da dort die ganze Tere, und man legt da rein ein Nomen oder was, und man gibt ein Quetsch, und sie gibt da ruhig Psukim, was der Mispar Shove. Ob ich reingelegt, Yechi Adoneinu, Moreinu, Rabbeinu, Melech HaMoshiach, Leilom Voed, und geben ein Quetsch, und sie sagt ruhig, ויודעתו איים והשבוע ישראל ובכו כי השם הוא אלוהיקים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ בתוכס אין אויט das will kein check und das ist der Ingen von Moshiach lesaken oilom bemalchus Dalet Yud eine von die Sachen was ich habe verdient dass ich bin in Indien ich verstehe Sachen besser ich sage עלינו לשבח כבר anders שלא יסומונו שלא יסום חלקנו שמשתחלים לבל ולוריק ich sage das mit Regen und der Rebbe hat angegeben und getan und tut und bet uns tun in dem Innen von der Saken Elom, nicht nur eigene, nicht nur ich rede nicht, Lubavitch, Chassidim, Iden, der Saken Elom. Das ist der Sod, was der ganze Innen von der Bria so Elom ist ankommen an der Welt, soll schreien, und das ist der Innen von des Kislev. Was der Blevitzel Baditschew hat gesagt, hat den Reben, was nicht gekannt, hat er gesagt, mit Azei, hat er gekannt Ton und der ganze keine Sowjet wird gewähnt ois. Aber die ganze Sache ist, ich die Lashem das ist beoretz, als der Welt soll schreien, als der Goy soll sagen. Und das ist jetzt, wir haben dem Shem, wir haben dem Yechi Adoneinu, und der Ingen Pnimi ist Yodato Ayem, der Ingen von Moshiach ist Megale sein, der Saken Elom Achashim Dalet Yud, und der Rebbe hat uns gegeben die Sache. Keiner ist nicht, ich sehe dem sind nicht in Naharonim. Keiner tracht nicht dafür, nicht mit Gashmis und nicht mit Ruchnis, aber das ist sein, was hat getan, was hat Matzliach gewinnt, das sind Sachen, was sie viel atypisch. Es ist sehr offen, wie der Rebbe führt die Sachen, also man weiß nicht, dass der Rebbe. Nur der Rebbe hat uns gegeben dem Schuss, Mo Israni Einyan Aleichem, also jeder einer soll oben Achelek, soll oben Eizbaktani in dem Inyan, und das will der Rebbe. Der Rebbe hat genommen den Nomen, was der Baal Shem Tov hat sich Mesher Nefesh gewinnt, herausnehmen mit Bile, mit Piv, und der Rebbe hat uns gegeben. Der Bechire Chofshis, aber der Rebbe nicht genommen, wir kennen nicht, der Rebbe allein, wie sagt die Nonne, aber der wird nicht tun, der Arbeit für uns. Ist der Ihnen, was der Rebbe hat uns gegeben, hat der Rebbe uns gegeben. Und wartet auf jeder einer von uns. Und das ist die Sache. Ich muss sagen, dem MS, ich komm von Indien, ist fort, ist nicht gering, der Nessie, ich bin gekommen nicht lang und nicht gering bleiben die Sprache, aber für was komme ich? Ich komme, weil ich habe Respekt für Chaim Yitzchak Cohen. Das ist die erste Sache. פשוט, זה היית. אני כן sagen, was ich will. אז nicht das Agrisser Goyen wie Rav Daniel Cohen, nicht das Agrisser Chosid wie andere, ich will die sagen nehmen, weil Rav Silberstein nicht oder so. Aber, ist לדעת זה התינק. Ich kann, תירוצים ונסברים ומחפבוס רבן, das ist alles המחמם. ist euch Zibile מפיו, das ist ein Ine. Das was tut. In India ist kein Chochme, weil alle wissen, dass der Rebbe Melech Moshiach. Aber da in London, sein Steiner Jid, nicht was geht im Gring, nicht was ist... Und der da ist der Tinek, F. Tigre, Zetralo, Eis, Zetralo, klar. Weiß nicht, was allein dort, aber weiß eine Sache. Also der Rebbe ist Melech Moshiach, ויודעת היום, אז אין את מלבדוי. איתו של דרשת לך, was ich komme. Und die zweite Sache, und ich sage dem Emes, jeden Mal, was ich komme her, שנחזור כברוך השם, ich komme mit Keiches von dort. Und keiner soll nicht meinen, dass ich mache einen Witz oder ich mache Keleimascht. Der Emes ist, als die ganze jüdische Volk, בפרט חסידים, ist ein Guf Echot, ist eine von Machzer Adam. Der Blut geht gut im ganzen Guf, wird das vom ganzen Guf. Ich schreibe schon da in der Erzbakterie im Fuß, ob es ein Problem, die Blut geht nicht gut, hat es eine Wirkung auf dem Meer Sheborich. Ich will auch nicht sagen, von welchem Teil ich bin, aber Akoponim, das ist sicher, als der Malach Adam, als ich der Reihe mal Chazak. Ich sage euch, Chaim Yitzchak, ich weiß nicht, was tut da in London, ich bin da noch 2-3 Tage jeden Mal, ich habe eine Schore ein bisschen, aber ich kann auch sagen, was tut in Polen. Ich komme zurück heim, zu dem Beis Chabad, zu dem Mishpoche, und ich gebe über Grießen, und ich sage euch, Chaim Yitzchak, ihr tut da, und also bei jeder eine von uns. Wir wissen nicht, wir dürfen noch tun. Ich bekomme Grießen, das sagt mal, warum will ich gekocht, weil sie da Sachen mit Eilim. Ein Mensch, was hat dann gegeben da, und plötzlich sitzt und lernt in Kehlel in Arad, in einem Smicher-Programm. Der hat gedacht, der Mensch hat einmal sitzen und Sefer. Oder kommen meine Sachen. Ein paar Volk, was gewinnt bei uns, ein paar Volk, also ich rufe doch das an, aber jüdische Tochter mit der Gorach Monesan. Und sie hat sich Haschen gehabt mit der chassidischen Bocher von der Darater, so chassidische Stube. Ich kann das erzählen meistens bis... Aber ich komme zurück von da, bringt das Kirches bis Indien. Der Chag in Indien ist mit England ein bisschen noch. Aber das ist die Sache. Mit Meile, einmal sind das Sachen, was Menschen sind in Nord, fühlen sie nicht, dass ich Chaim Yitzchak, ich habe nicht keine Woche, ich habe nicht keine... Raman Futter, als er gekommen zu der neue Ruf. Gegangen reden mit dem, wegen dem Ihnen von Schlemus Oretz, vor 20 Jahren zurück, 30 Jahren zurück. Und der Lehrer besucht, dass er mit nichts zurückgeben, mit seiner Milchumes, mit Kunis Nefushes. Er sagt, Raman guckt ihm an und sagt ihm, der neue Ruf, ihr wollt Ruach HaKodesh? Der erste Mal, was er hat gefragt, dass er sagt. Er gewinnt ein bisschen zu tun, und er Psariach Hatare. Ja, HaKodesh weiß nicht, aber Psariach Hatare. Ich sage euch, einmal am Isnont, sieht man nicht. Ich kann sich vorstellen, dass ich da solche Menschen, nicht von denen, die sitzen da, aber ich da solche Menschen, die gucken auf Chaim Yitzchak als ein Kurios. Kurios. Ich weiß nicht, wie sie Kurios auf Englisch. Curiosity.
No, curiosity.
Anekdot. משהו כזה... לא, זה קוריוז. לא סטרנג', סטרנג' זה מוזר. קוריוז זה יותר ממוזר. ist verwas, die Menschen weit, aber אפילו Menschen, was kommen nachher, ich lebe sie, noch einmal, Riach Atar bekocht nicht, aber Chochmas Apart bekocht nicht, aber etwas muss verstehe ich, als ich sage euch, zu dem, ich sage euch, von meiner Experience, wie gesagt, ich komme von der Derech Heiko, ich sehe einmal von Weitem, Mirochek Hashem Niroli, ist ein bisschen von Weitem, sagt mir, ich bekomme Kirches von der Mieten. Und mit Meile will ich sagen, Ashikoyach, dem Reb Melech HaMoshiach, was hat gestellt in jeder Platz am Meshugener. Der Reb hat allein gesagt auf sich. Steht in Tanach, בכלל, die Neviim sind Meshugoim. Und der Reb hat allein gesagt zu Reb Chaim Neiman, der Gerer Ast von Boropass. Man sagt auf mir, dass er crazy about Moshiach. Der Reb hat nicht gesagt, dass er nicht crazy about Moshiach. Er gesagt, ich meine es mit der Nemes. Wie du sagen, פושט השקויח חיים יצחק כהן für die Gelegenheit, treffen sich בשבט סחים גם יוחד. Und ich will sagen, dem Reb Melech HaMoshiach, השקח, אז in jeder Platz hat gestellt, לכל הפוחס ein Meshugener. So geht schon aber Hirschsprung, זכרנו לברכה, אז hat gesagt einmal, gefragt, wo ist der Lubavitcher Rebbe? Ich will auch suchen, wo ist der Lubavitcher Rebbe ist. Der Lubavitcher Rebbe ist ein Mensch, wo schluft nicht und lässt nicht andere schlufen. Und der Rebbe gestellt לכל הפוחס in jedem Platz ein Meshugener, was die Friedrich Rebbe hat einmal gesagt, ich bin ein Schulklapper. Ich bin also eine Arbeit, ein Schulklapper. Ich bin die Sägers mit allen Patenten. Ich bin eine Arbeit von noch Jeden. Ich lebe gehen und klappen auf die Fensters. Und der Friedrich Rebbe gesagt, der Schulklapper weiß nicht, was tut sich nicht tun. Darf klappen, geht weiter, weil der Minen darf sich auch nehmen. Das wartet jeder einer, wird sich alles kratzen. Aber in wenigen Stub, da ein paar Sorten Eden. Sie da solche Sorten Eden, was schläft nicht die ganze Nacht. Wartet schon mit so Klapp auf dem Tier. Ist die ganze Schlafen beim wartet auf dem Klapp, darf lebt nicht Schule. Sie da ein zweiter Ed, was hört nicht, was mit klappt. Aber zwischen die beiden da noch zwei Zugim. Sie da einer, was öffnet tut der Eg und sagt, sagt Kaltkeit London, öffnet der Eg, sagt Monoliths Land. Dachte noch wegen der Reus gehen, und sie bekommt Nefesh, es ist im Kalt, es ist meist. Ein bisschen später, es ist nur noch am Minion. Sie da ein Said, was noch 5 Minuten. Sie da ein Said, wird nicht aufstehen, aber schlafen zurück, wird er nicht schlafen. Kann nicht schlafen. Der Matzpun, lasst ihn nicht. Dreht sich her, dreht sich hin, dreht sich her, dreht sich hin. Schlafen wird er nicht. Und das ist die Sache, was der Rebbe hat gelegt, jeder Platz. Nicht jeder einer kann Mischaer sein, was tut sich bei jenen, aber ich kann auch sagen. Sie da sagt Chaim Yitzchak, ich da Pauliden, was schlafen nicht zu lieben. Er nicht rein, nicht hier, er nicht sagen, aber er schlaft nicht. Schlafen, litalem, wird er nicht. Und das ist der Rebbes Arbeit, dieser Schulklapper, hat der Friedrich Rebbe gesagt. Jeder einer in seinem Mathe, das ist seinen Bekitzer Gudel, בכל השמיים דort, אז steht dort in Korben Pesach, was misbein sein, der Unionim, wird er sehen, als sie dort Asach mehr, und der unterste Schor will sagen, ich erkenne, der Reb Melech HaMoshiach, also gestellt, dass Chaim Yitzchak Cohen in London, und als erkenne Chaim Yitzchak, also steht Baruch Hashem. Und was man darf beten, jeder einer, was sie sagen, soll ein Poschet von Mal zu Mal, weil ich sehe, als Dremel sagt, ich habe mir einmal gesagt, Dremel stehen die Geräte mit der Fang, aber er sitzt und der Dremel ist Mehle. Es ist nicht eingenommen, als ich rede und er schläft, aber Mehle, ich bin Meile. Aber einmal kann sein, als er singt mit und er vermattet und er verjogt, als er stehen und sagt, חבר'ה, steht lem ein bisschen, Ebchaz ושולם ירדם בעמידה, תחזיק אותו. יחי אדוננו, מורנו ורבנו, מלך המשיח עלינו בואי.
Grace Yeshikoyach, Rebbe Tzalel, I reserve all comments. FT, no comments. Achron Choviv, by popular demand, by quite a number of the Subin Khan. I know the time is marching on and we want to have the opportunity to dance with Avi Piamenta, but we also want a chaperein as well. The people should also take a flavor back from wherever they've come from near, from far, on the Moshiach Congress. Achron Choviv, I want to call upon Rabbi Sholem Berg Halmanson, Shliach of the Rebbe Melech HaMoshiach in Cincinnati, Ohio, to conclude the Congress, conclude the Melava Malka this evening. I hope everybody, I'm sure everybody will give him the attention he deserves. Rabbi Kalmanson.
L'chaim. Die Alte Alter Rebbe had a chassid, a known chassid by the name of Rab Shmuel Munkes. This chassid was an individual who tried to spend most of his time in the company and the presence of the Alter Rebbe. His wife already knew that if he left the home and he didn't show up back home in a few hours, or for that matter in a few days, and many times in a few weeks, and for that again maybe a few months, she knew that he was with Alter Rebbe, there was nothing to worry about. One year, B'Chodesh Elul, his wife felt that it would really be appropriate if he would be home 1 year for Chodesh Tishrei. So she made a deal with him that this year he's not leaving home. And he agreed that this year he's going to stay home for the month of Tishrei. Erev Rosh Hashanah, a few days before Rosh Hashanah, she gave him a list to go to the store shopping, eggs, milk, whatever it was that he had to buy, and she asked him to go ahead and bring it back home. As he went out shopping, he noticed a caravan of Hasidim were traveling to the Alter Rebbe. It's Erev Rosh Hashanah, the spirits were high, his feelings were great. Hasidim are traveling to the Alter Rebbe, how can you not go? He jumped on the wagon. Obviously he didn't come home, so his wife realized what happened. But he's by the Alter Rebbe, so he spent the whole month of Tishrei by the Alter Rebbe. Chanukah went by, Purim went by, and he's still there. As the month of Nisan approached, and it was getting close to Pesach, he decided, for Pesach it would be wise to come home. So he turns around and he starts out on his way back home. When he came back into his hometown, he remembered that his wife sent him shopping. So he pulled the list out of his pocket, goes to the store, buys the milk, the eggs, whatever it was there that was not chometz, and he's coming home. His wife, in the meantime, as you can imagine yourself, knowing that he wasn't home and she knew that she had to prepare for Pesach, was cleaning and preparing, and here is just a few days before Pesach. And all of a sudden the door opens up and he jumps right through the door with 2 big, huge bags of food, and he trips over the doorpost. And everything spills out, the eggs, the milk, and the whole house becomes a churban once again. And his wife loses herself, and she says, "What are you doing to me? Not only have you not been here for the last 6 months, you're coming now Erev Pesach after all this work, and you make me a churban over here. I have to start from scratch." He turns to, you see what happens when you rush. I always knew that London happens to be yekis, accurate people. 8 o'clock means 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock is 9 o'clock. Whatever it may be, but every time I come to the kinnis, but this year more so, 8 o'clock is nicht gewenken 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock is nicht gewenken 9 o'clock, and I've come to realize that Rab Chaim Yitzchak has learned the tricks of yoga nicht kommt nicht der Reusken goods. So he slowed down a little bit, and although tonight we're supposed to start at 8 o'clock, I hate to say what time it did start, and the only reason I'm saying this is because some people had some tightness to me here in the beginning of the evening. How come Thursday night I spoke after 12 o'clock? Hat nicht geteinnis to me, it didn't start till who knows when, and this is the reason for it. It was mentioned before that speeches is not for tonight. It's more of a fabrengen. And therefore I think I'm going to back away from the concept of a speech perhaps and stick to the concept of a fabrengen. I've been here since the beginning of the kinnis, Thursday. And Baruch Hashem, there was fabrengens continuously from the beginning of the kinnus until now. And for those that have been here and participated know that Thursday night, we sat here till almost 5:15, 5:30 in the morning. Friday night, we sat quite late. And I'm assuming that tonight it'll happen the same thing. But as we draw this kinnus to a close, as I mentioned on Thursday night, it is definitely time, once again, not only to make a cheshbon nefesh of what we are going to do here because it was Rosh Hashanah LaChasidus, but really sort of a little bit of a cheshbon nefesh of what did transpire here over this kinnus and what can we go home with. There's a famous story that an individual went out into the forest. He went hunting. And after a few hours, he went deep enough into the forest that he lost himself and he couldn't find his way out. And he was looking and looking, and in those days, again, it wasn't that easy to find your way. They didn't have any means of communications. And a day went by, and 2 days went by, and he's really getting desperate. Finally, on the third day, from a distance, he notices an individual. As such, he thought that for sure this individual knows his way around here. And he ran over to this individual and he says, you know, I've been lost here for the last 3 days. I don't know my way around. I can't get out. Can you help me? Show me the directions. And this individual turned to him and he says, let me tell you something. I'm also lost here. I don't know to help you, to bring you out of here. The only thing I can help you is to tell you which ways not to go. I'm not going to stand over here and try to profess as being any big professional or tell you Musa or tell you where you should go. I can just tell you where not to go. And I want to start with Rosh Chodesh Kislev. I mean, after all, Rosh Chodesh, the Rebbe always pointed out, is the beginning of the month, and as such, it incorporates everything that has to do with the month. So Yutas Kislev, and now Chanukah, and Yud Kislev, and Yudalet Kislev, everything is incorporated into Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And to Rosh Chodesh Kislev, to Chassidim of this generation, should really mean what some people would have said all the years in regards to Yutas Kislev. It really should mean that Oy v'chayis nafsheinu nitan lonu. This is the day really when we have gotten the second wind, if you will. Life has been given to each and every one of us to continue. And therefore I want to stop for a minute and pay some attention to what happened on Rosh Chodesh Kislev. I don't know if there are any physicians in this room over here or not, but I will take the liberty to act as one. Dr. Ira Weiss, who was the Rebbe's physician then, and became a Frummer Chassidish Yid since then, told me once that if we can size up a heart attack from 1 to 10, the Rebbe's heart attack at the time was 9.75. Normally in Derech HaTeva, there is no way that anyone could have walked away from this without any major heart damage, that he should be able to function. And he said that when he got called in and assessed the situation, he was dead scared. Not so much for the Rebbe, because he thought at that point he wasn't even 100% from either, not because of the Rebbe, because he figured there was no hope there anyway, but he was afraid of his personal life. Because he thought that Chassidim are a bunch of nuts. They're not going to understand anything about medicine, and God forbid something would happen to the Rebbe at that moment, they'll kill him for not saving the Rebbe's life. What happened that night in 770? Everybody knows that the Rebbe's place in 770 was at the at the eastern wall, the southeastern wall of 770. The shul was then not a small shul either. The Rebbe obviously was on a platform. The heart attack did not happen later. The heart attack happened right there on the bima. What does a person do when he has a heart attack? You fall, you collapse, you fall up. You definitely have no koiches to do anything. Here, the Rebbe turned around, walked down the steps of this platform, walked through the entire length of the shul from Mizrach to Ma'ariv, first from south to north, and then all the way down to the western side of the shul, which is a nice half a block walk. Walked up a set of steps, turned right into a corridor, turned right again towards the entrance, where the entrance of 770 is, in the atrium, if you want to call it, of 770, walked into the Gan Eden HaTachten, walked into his room, closed the door, and then collapsed. Any doctor will tell you that physically this was impossible. But why did the Rebbe do this? We all know later that the Rebbe was very sensitive to everyone in the audience, everyone that was there gathered. The Rebbe was concerned that people shouldn't go into panic, and therefore did everything that it took, even l'mayla min hakoiches, which is physically impossible to do, to go into that room without making an issue and without anyone recognizing what was going on over here. We know that at the first opportunity that the Rebbe had, he demanded to speak in public. That Motzei Shabbos Parshas Noach, the Rebbe spoke for the first time in public on a hookah. But that didn't come that easy either, as... Excuse me? I'm sorry. That didn't come that easy, as the doctor himself states that they were afraid for the Rebbe to exert any extra energy. And they told him no. And the Rebbe gave them one choice. Either you let me speak, or I'm going to speak anyway. So you might as well work with me. And when they noticed that they had no choice, they basically, I should tell you something as a footnote, an interesting thing. I may have mentioned it over here before because this is something very interesting. Dr. Weiss, in his fear of what was going to take place, called his professor from Boston to come along and to be there, B'Shas Maisa. And this professor of Boston was no little guy in cardiology. And as they were working with the Rebbe started asking some questions about heart attacks and about strokes. And the Rebbe asked an interesting question. The Rebbe said that with genetic engineering that we have today, the Rebbe asked, why can you not do, in the case of a heart attack, the same thing as is happening on its own with a stroke? When a person has a stroke, things can come to themselves and recover slowly, because people obviously walk out of a stroke and they don't remain paralyzed necessarily, and that's because things move forward. In a heart, obviously it can't happen on its own, but the Rebbe said that maybe with genetic engineering, why can't you do that, and this way you can verspose heart transplants or bypasses or other things that have happened and have a person recover pretty fast. And Ira Weiss says that the doctor looked at the Rebbe and says, you may be a great scholar and a great rabbi, but what do you know about medicine? It's impossible. It just cannot happen. And the Rebbe didn't pay attention to what he said and continued to push this concept, and the Rebbe gave him a whole idea of how to carry this out and how to make this thing work. The guy really didn't pay much of attention. And he left back home after whatever it was, the time that he was there. I was in Chicago 2 years ago, I think this was, maybe 3, for Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And I spoke over there, and Ira Weiss was in the room. And he was asked to speak after me. And he told this story that I'm telling you now about his professor. And at the end he says, I want to tell you something. That today, he said, 25 years later, a book was just published that passed peer reviews, and this has become now, and the guy credits the Rebbe for it, this has become now something that is being discussed in the field of medicine to enter a whole new approach in dealing with heart conditions at this point. What happened was, he says, that the professor came back to Boston, and, you know, and as much as he discounted everything, said that the Rebbe was so insistent on this whole thing and didn't let it go that he decided to start researching this. And 25 years later, has come to the conclusion that the Rebbe was right, and it could be done, and went through the whole system as it goes through in medicine with peer review and the whole works, and now wrote a whole thing in the Journal of Medicine to actually show that this could be done and is being dealt with now in the field of medicine, in cardiology. But anyway, go back where we were. The Rebbe insisted that he's going to speak, and the doctors, realizing at this point that they have no choice, that the Rebbe was pretty stubborn about these things, they gave him permission. The permission basically was that he would be able to speak for 5 minutes. And they actually put monitors onto the Rebbe so that they can follow what I call the cardiogram. They can follow the cardiogram to watch the Rebbe's heart. Well, the first thing the Rebbe did was Chazad HaMaimah. A Maimah doesn't exactly take 3 minutes. After the Rebbe finished the Maimah, he still spoke for probably another 20 and 30 minutes, if not more. But Ira Weiss says that as soon as the Rebbe started the Maimah, the machine, the cardiogram machine, went blank, flat. It went flat. It went flat. And he said he got frightened, but when he looked at the Rebbe's face and he didn't see any colors changing or anything happening, he figured staying back and not getting involved over here. But at first, obviously, the reaction was that something was going wrong and that he should get involved over here. After the Rebbe finished the Maimah and went back to the Sichos, everything went back on to normal and went going there. Which, again, as Chassidim, I don't think we have to go into this at great length to say what this means to us. The point that I'm trying to say is that here you see what the Rebbe was trying to emulate himself and to teach us is the sensitivity of this Avas Yisrael, caring for other Jews, not to even frighten them, regardless of the fact that this was Pikuach Nefesh in his own life. And he wanted us to do likewise. And he sent us out. As a matter of fact, the doctors at that point told the Rebbe that he's going to have to retire. He was definitely of the age of retirement at the time. And we all know that from Lamed Ches on, the activities not only didn't slow down, but intensified many, many fold. And the Rebbe wanted this from us. The same thing. The Rebbe wanted that we should go out and do our tasks, as you heard before, as shluchim, and everybody has the task of being a shliach, whether on the payroll or not on the payroll, whether he is a foot soldier or he's a tankist, so to speak, or he's in the Navy or in the Air Force, it makes no difference. There are a lot of divisions in the armed forces. But it takes the entire armed forces to succeed in a war. And this is what the Rebbe wanted from us. And there's no playing Kunsten. There's no way to try to find our way out of this and figure that I'm going to do something only when it's politically correct, because if somebody's going to come and have kindness to me, I'm going to back off. Or maybe I shouldn't say it in that way. And then we start finding words from the Rebbe that the Rebbe said that when you talk about Moshiach and Geula, it has to be spoken about the Oifen HaMiskabel. I'm still not so sure what that means, because I don't believe, and you can check this out, that the only time the Rebbe used the terms that you have to deal in a miftzah be'oifen ha'miskabel was miftzah Moshiach HaGeula. I will show you letters from the Rebbe that go back to miftzah Tefillin. To miftzah Tefillin right after the 6-Day War, where the Rebbe also uses the terms that it should be done be'oifen ha'miskabel. And still, people went out in the street and grabbed the guy, you're Jewish, and right away rolled his sleeve, and Maton gave Leighton Tefillin, you look like a nut b'shes maisa too. It may not have exactly been b'yofen ha'miskabel. But we know what Miftzah Tefillin has done to the world today. So b'yofen ha'miskabel is nothing more than a tas ha'yetzer. When we start using these lashonis, it's b'yofen ha'miskabel is only good. The Rebbe made it clear that the world today is ready to hear this. The Rebbe made it clear that as long as we act as normal human beings and everything else in our life, then it is going to be b'yofen ha'miskabel automatically. I know I told it over here before, but then again the Rebbe himself told the story of Rav Moshe Feller, if you recall the story with Velvel Green, with Professor Green. The Rebbe was trying to show that when a person meets another person in the street, these are the words of the Rebbe, when two people meet each other in the street, the Rebbe said the first thing he has to tell them is, we want Moshiach now. And then the Rebbe said, es guckt doch euch wild, it sounds like it's way outlandish, and the Rebbe said that if a person conducts himself in his life normally in everything else, this is the only mishigas, so to speak, in his life, is das euch nicht gefährlich, it'll be acceptable. And the story that the Rebbe told to this, again, as I said, was a known story where Rav Moshe Feller, when he came to Minneapolis, was looking to make inroads into all elements, into all various groupings of the community, and he wanted to very desperately meet with Professor Velvel Green. Professor Green at the time was an individual that came from a home that were total atheists. Their religion was Yiddishisten. That was their religion. They were from the workman's circle, from the Linke Cheva, from the Sozialisten, but they spoke Yiddish. That was their whole Judaism. And he wanted to meet with him very much. And Velvel Green tried anything and everything in his power to make sure not to meet him. He didn't have time, he was busy, it was this. But Chassidim wissen, if you can't get in through the door, you're going through the window. So Moshe Feller didn't give up either, and they kept on trying and trying. And finally, as a smart man, he said to himself, you know what? I will give you 20 minutes. I'll give you an appointment for 20 minutes. Figuring that let him say whatever he wants in the 20 minutes, he'll get rid of him, he won't be able to nudge him anymore. He already saw him. That's the end of it. And as the Rebbe himself tells the story, the appointment was set up for a winter day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Rabbi Shefeller comes to his office, and he waits to get into the office. He's waiting, and finally the door opens up, and he's escorted in by the secretary. They close the door behind, and he's sitting over there, and he realizes that he didn't daven mincha. He jumps out of his seat. He grabs his gattel, turns to the mizrach wall, and he starts davening mincha. Velvel Green never saw this before in his life, and he's thinking to himself, look at this nut. I gave him 20 minutes, and 10 out of it he's standing and talking to the wall. And sure enough, as soon as he finished, he turned to him and he says, you were chasing me around for whatever it was, a year and a half, 2 years, whatever the time was. You're chasing me around, and now finally you got it, and I gave you 20 minutes, so 10 of it you're talking to the wall. And Rav Moshe Feller explained to him, the Rebbe said, what is mincha, and the greatness of mincha, the importance of mincha, and that he didn't daven before, and that was the shki, and he had no choice. And the Rebbe said, where is Velvel Green today? That encounter was the door opener for Velvel Green to Yiddishkeit. And the Rebbe showed that here, Takigwena wilde Zach. Definitely not Oifna Miskabel. Definitely wild. And yet, this became the door opener. So the Rebbe said that when a Jew meets a Jew in the street, the first thing has to be, we want Mashiach now, although in Seichel Leitzach, to say Shalom Aleichem. What's your name? Do you have a wife and children? How are they? How are you? And then say we want Mashiach now. That way you still got your message across. But the Rebbe said, no, that was not the derech. The first thing to do is to tell a person and to expose him to the inyan of Mashiach HaGeyulah. Even at the cost of initially one thinking that it may not be B'yofen HaMiskabel. Many people come with tinus and say, you're running around, you're screaming, you're turning people off when you're saying it, and all these kind of things. But these are people that come with the philosophy, again using the Rebbe's expression, of Shev v'al taseh. Sitz aleinu lo zatzveiten nishton. The trouble is, if a person does not feel that he has the ability, the courage to go out in the street and to do so, wo schreist du auf atzveiten wenn tut es ja? Why are you so upset when someone else is going out and doing your job? The Rebbe said that this is a message that has to go out in the street, strong and loud and clear enough that there should be no doubt in anyone's mind what you're trying to teach them. And the Rebbe said, if you don't feel ready at this moment to do this yourself, get someone else to do the work for you, because it's not the fault of your mushpoim not to hear it because you're not ready. So if someone has a problem and they don't feel ready to do this on their own yet, and they don't feel that they can handle this on their own yet, whatever the reason may be, or they don't have the courage, or they don't feel they're acquainted with the Rebbe Sichos, the Rebbe answered that too. The Rebbe said it clearly, and he begged, and it was mentioned here tonight, that if everybody would learn from the Likutei Sichos, from Nossi Hadoir, being Yoni Mashiach HaGeyulah, there wouldn't be a doubt in anyone's mind, Yo Yechi, Nish Yechi, should you say, should you not say, and why, if you're saying it already, do you have to say it 500 times a day? There's an interesting Rambam in the laws of Bikurim. And the Rambam points out, and he gives the entire setting, the entire procedure of how one is to bring Bikurim. And it's interesting, if you take a look in the process, you'll see that every minute the person had to say Harei ze Bikurim. Every move of the procedure he had to say Harei ze Bikurim, Harei ze Bikurim, Harei ze Bikurim. This is Bikurim. And the question is asked, why so many times? You say it in the beginning, you say it at the end, make Al Hashem Yichud, do whatever you want, but why do you have to keep on screaming the whole time Harei ze Bikurim? And the Rambam explains, Kidei lahoitzi min haminim. There was a time where people started already reading against the concept, or it's nothing, and medaf yotz, and medaf nicht, etc., etc., etc. Lahoitzi min haminim. Since there are people that are arguing, then you have to say that many more times. Maybe it would have been enough to say Yechi once in the morning, and once in the afternoon, and once in the evening, or maybe once a day, who knows? But what ends up happening is Kedei lahoitzi min haminim, and in my case, those who are arguing and fighting and screaming and saying heipach of what the Rebbe told us. The Rebbe made it clear that Yechi has nothing to do with physical living, not physical living. The Rebbe made it clear that this is noisen chayus to Zera Beis David. And it's interesting that the Rebbe says this in the whole Sikha. Where does this whole concept of Yechi come from to begin with? We just read it in the Haftarah just a few weeks ago. The Rebbe says that Basheva is very concerned. David HaMelech is on his deathbed. The children are already getting ready into the future. They're leaving the seventh generation behind, so to speak. They're already starting with the Doyer Hashmini. And Mehulichin, Mishin Great. And she's very concerned. And the Novi tells her, this is not the way to go about it. You were promised by David HaMelech that Shloime Yimlech Tachtov, therefore you have to get this clear, because Im Lo Yachshav Emosai, the king is passing on. He gave her the eights, and she comes to the king, and she says to the king that, you know something, you said that this is how it's going to be, that b'ni shloime yimlech tachtecha, and if you're not going to make it clear now, ani ubni shloime chatoim. We're going to end up sinners over here. The Haftarah concludes that David HaMelech confirms it, that Shloime Yimlech Tachtov, and he's just about ready to pass out as she screams, Yechi Adonai HaMelech David Le'navod. And the Rebbe says, Lecha she is moired b'malchus, because she's laughing from the king. He's dying. He's practically almost dead, and she's screaming, Yechi. And this is where the Rebbe explains that the concept of Yechi is an injection to Zera Beis David. And by assuring that Shloime Yimlech Tachtov, he assured now that Zera Beis David will continuously hold the link of this Malchus until the Isgalus of Melech HaMashiach. And therefore saying Yechi is not an issue of, is the Rebbe here? Is the Rebbe not here? Did anybody see what happened on Gimel Tammuz? Or did somebody not see what happened on Gimel Tammuz? I don't even want to let it out of my mouth. I don't know why people even talk this language. You don't have to go far. The Zohar talks clear language about these issues, and the Alter Rebbe brings it clear. Chaye HaTzadik, we mentioned it over here Thursday night. Who cares what happens later? Chaye HaTzadik. Those 80, 90 years of a tzaddik alei adomes are not physical either. When you see the tzaddik eating, he's not eating. When you see the tzaddik sleeping or doing other movements that he's doing, it's not physical. It's an achizas hinayim. It's an optical illusion. And people don't understand, how could this be? An optical illusion is really not true. You're misleading someone. But you know something? Scientifically, this makes sense. Where our whole life is an achizas hinayim. Are we all sitting over here now, and you're looking straight at me, and I'm looking straight at you? Is that the reality of what's happening in this room tonight? I hope nobody's going to tell me yes. Because scientifically speaking, we're all twisting and turning and segate at such speed that we think we're sitting in the same place. We're not sitting. Wir drehen sich. Man verdreht sich im Kopf ganz gut, that's also true. Aber man hält sich in einen Dreh, we're not sitting in one place, and yet, physically, it looks like we're sitting. This is scientific. When you have a fan, or a propeller turning, and you have several blades, and you look at it, when it's standing in one place, you see 5, 7, whatever the amount of blades are. When you start flipping it through fast, what do you see? You see a wall. You see one blade. You don't see no 15 blades turning. It's going at such kind of a speed that it looks like a wall. You cannot pierce your finger through it, not because you'll chop your finger off, but there's no way to go through. There's no hole. Which means from a scientific standpoint, if you can get your finger to twist and to turn as fast as that fan can turn, you would be able to move your finger in and out without busting your finger. This is scientific. I'm not talking ruchnis over here. So here you can see a metzias of a tzaddik eating and sleeping and doing other bodily needs as an achizas hinayim. Nicht gestoigen and nicht geflogen. I'm not talking about after Chaim. I'm talking Chaim. And we find it in the Torah. We don't have to go far. The Rebbe is a good, he shows us everything in the Torah. Again, just a few weeks ago, we read the story with Avraham Avinu, who was just circumcised to 100 years old. And the Rebbe wants to give him some recovery time. So what does the Rebbe do? He takes the sun out of the ozone layer, and he wants to give him a rest, to give him haste. People are not going around anymore, so now Avram can rest up. But the Rebbe sees that Avram has tsar. Avram is agonizing that he can't fulfill the mitzvah of achnos ha'sochim, of hospitality. What could the Rebbe have done? You don't have to be a rocket scientist. The Rebbe could have put the sun right back into the ozone layer. In the Middle East, everybody knows he could have let it pour for a few minutes. It would have gotten cool, and that would have been the end of it. People would start walking, so Avram would have fulfilled what he wanted, and everything would have been okay. After all, what did Avram want? Vayikra b'shem Hashem kei leilam. He wanted people to make brachas. He forced them to make brachas before eating and benching after eating. What does the Eibush to do? These are not human beings. Avraham Avinu doesn't know this. Therefore now Avraham Avinu calls them. He brings them in, he sits them down, and he starts running into the field, and he brings and he prepares food, and he sets it in front of them, and vayochelu. They're eating. Which means, obviously, he forced them to make a bracha too. Rashi asks immediately, they don't eat. And what does Rashi answer? It was an optical illusion. So the Eibishter goes out of his way to send them malachim rather than human beings, cause them to make brachas levatolos and everything that goes along with it, because the Eibishter wants to tell us that one time down the road in Jewish history, since everything is Maisi Overs, down the road there's going to be such concept of a tzaddik. And tzaddik is Yesod Olam. And so man sich aufhören, warfen sich mit der Ausdrücken, is a tzaddik. Just like we spoke about over here in the last few days, about everybody's a Baal Mesiras Nefesh, and we cheapened the whole concept, the same thing we did to this concept of tzaddikim. There are no 100 tzaddikim running around on the streets, and not every second guy is a tzaddik, and because he has a bigger coat and a smaller coat and a bigger hat and a smaller hat, and he looks very nice, a herahin, doesn't make him a tzaddik. If he's a bein, he's a shneich ganz fein. So ich hasheine madrege. Tzaddik is Yesod Olam. Robe tzaddikim shehem mu'otim, omad rishos lo b'chol do'er v'do'er. He sprinkled them. And these guys are, to quote the Rebbe, in Tovshin Yud Aleph already. This is way in the early days. Mela, now the whole world is ready. But if you take a look at Simchas Torah Tovshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe talks about a letter that the Baal Shem Tov writes to his brother-in-law Rab Gershon Kittever. And the Rebbe says that in that letter, the Baal Shem Tov writes him a story that did not happen for 25 more years. And the Rebbe says, however, that in the letter he writes him the story Beloshen Hoiver. He writes them in present tense. And the Rebbe asks, how could he write it to him in present tense if it didn't happen for 25 years? And the Rebbe's answer is tzaddikim doimim leboirim. That just like the Eibishter has no conception of time and space because he's infinite, so too is the real tzaddik infinite. And the Rebbe goes on, he says this is the same inyan of what Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said, and we find it in the Zohar, and we find it in the Yerushalmi, Man Pnei Ha'odin Hashem Do Rashbi. Rashbi calls himself God. And the Rebbe asks, how can a boss of Adam call himself God? And the Rebbe's answer is that a tzaddik is atzmus melubish beguf. I don't care whether you understand what I'm saying, you don't understand what I'm saying, if it makes sense to you or it doesn't make sense to you, the inyan does not change. Atzmus melubish beguf. We all have atzmus in us, but by us it's pretty concealed that we have bodily needs. We do get stomach aches and headaches, and we have to eat and we have to sleep. Try not to do it for a few days. But to the tzaddik, it doesn't make an impact whatsoever. We know, let's not go far. Let's go to the Gulf War. In the first Gulf War, the Rebbe talks about the war. As soon as the first Gulf War was over, after Purim, there's a sikha of the Rebbe where the Rebbe discusses the Gulf War. And the Rebbe talks over there in... And the Rebbe talks over there in present tense of things that never happened. The Rebbe talks about Basra. The Rebbe talks about finding Hoin HaMoin Rav of Kislev Azov. The Rebbe talks about a lot of things that didn't happen then. And everybody by now knows, because it was already published, that when the people that are writing the sikhs, those manichim that had to put the sikha together, got a call that night and asked to move some stuff out of the sikha, not the publisher. And when asked what the story was, the answer was Oid Chazoin Lamoyed. That was the answer. Oid chazoin lamoyed. Come a time when you'll have to publish that too. But at that moment, the world wasn't ready to read that. But if you go back and you take a look, the Rebbe was talking about Basra, which did not happen in the First Gulf War. Finding Saddam Hussein and his money and his wealth and all the stuff did not happen in the First Gulf War. And other things that didn't happen in the First Gulf, the successes and so on and so forth. But the Rebbe spoke about it in 1991. In Tovshin and Al, the Rebbe spoke about it as if it was happening then, a happened fact, Beloshen Hoive. And Oid Chazoin Lamoyed, you can all open up the book yourself and check it for yourself. Take a look what Rashi says on Oid Chazoin Lamoyed. Rashi says clearly that this is about Moshiach who will come and end this all off. Now people are again come back with Kol Mine Taineslech. The Rebbe did, the Rebbe didn't, he didn't meet all the criteria, he didn't meet the criteria, open the Rambam, take a look, he didn't. I don't know what you guys are talking about because I know, based on the Rebbe's Sichos, the Rebbe surpassed Cheskas Mashiach. Why do I say this? Very simple. The Rebbe said at one point that it says eschem al kanfin ishorim, that the Eivishter promises that he's going to take the Jews to Eretz Yisrael al kanfin ishorim on the wings of an eagle. Obviously, the question is, nobody has ever seen an eagle big enough to carry one person, let alone Klal Yisrael. So what does that mean? Obviously, we all read into it as a metaphor. And according to the Rebbe, there is no such thing as a metaphor. It may have been a metaphor at the time that it was said, but it's revealed later up in retrospect that this is maybe a metaphor, but a metaphor that has truth in it. And the Rebbe says that when you can bring 16,000 Jews to Eretz Yisrael in a 24-hour period, that is called Yikabetz Nidche Yisrael. And by sheer coincidence, the Rebbe also says something very interesting. That how did they bring these people then in Eretz Yisrael? The Rebbe said that they took 747s. Today they could have used 777s, all these new planes, but at that time the 747 was the big guy. They took out all the chairs and they put people in there. They loaded them in like a bunch of cattle, tied them down to the floors and flew them to Eretz Yisrael in mass. And the Rebbe said that by no sheer coincidence in the aviation industry at the time, they called the 747 the Steel Eagle. Metaphor, aber nicht as a starke metaphor. So Yikabetz Nidche Yisrael, which is one of the Tanoim of Mashiach Vadai, the Rebbe said that started. Yivne Beis HaMikdash, I'm sure every one of you have learned the Sicha of Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel. The Rebbe makes it very clear what means Yivne Beis HaMikdash Bim Kaimoi. I don't think I have to go into the great length. Short and sweet at 770. Beis Rabbeinu, Beis Moshiach, and the Rebbe says it clear that the Shechina goes to Golus with Klal Yisrael, and that there are many, many places, little shuls all over the globe, in diaspora, in which is a Mikdash Miyat. But just like in the Beis HaMikdash then, there was the one place, and there was the Lishkas HaGozis, the Rebbe says, because Shememenu Yetzei Ro La'olam, the Rebbe says that in Golus there will be Beis Rabbeinu, which the face and Klal Yisrael's focus is going to be there. And when Mashiach comes, the Rebbe said that all of these, both the Knesiyas and both the Midrashis, are going to join up into this one, and together with this one are going to go to Eretz Yisrael and set themselves up in the Lishkas HaGozis, the new one, Shemisham Yetzei Ro Yisrael. This is the Rebbe's Sikh, it's not my talk. And the Rebbe goes into that it's no sheer coincidence that it's called 770. The Rebbe goes into it's no sheer coincidence that this is a place, the only address in the world that you need not have an address. When you say over here 10, you have to add Downing, right? It's geht nicht anders. When you say 16 in America, you have to say Pennsylvania Avenue. It's geht nicht. All these are very popular places. Well, when you say 770, it makes no difference where you're coming from. Everybody knows what you're talking about. And by no sheer coincidence, the Rebbe adds that as time moves on and the time becomes more ripe, Einei Kol Yisrael V'Kol Ha'amim, people, not only Jews, are focused on coming there. We need not tell anybody how many thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, fromme Yidden, freie Yidden, Nischke Yidden, Jochen Yidden, Professoren, simple people, came running there, whether it's to stand in the line for $1 or just to take a look, this chizoyin, of what's going on with this Beis Rabbeinu, with this so-called 770. So these two things happen too. Are we going to remove a title now from someone who has paid the price for it? Do we have the audacity to do this? Do we have the ability to do this? Is this mikoychenu? Who are we to stand now and say he does or he doesn't? If a person goes lahavdil elef havdolas and becomes a doctor, and he gets himself his MD, and for some reason does or doesn't retire, or decides that he's going off on a cruise and he doesn't want to practice medicine, he's going on a sabbatical, he doesn't want to practice medicine for a year. He lost his MD, and how's a doctor? Once you gain this title, even Cheskes Moshiach, forget about Vadai. You can't take this away from anybody. The Rebbe explains this also when people ask, who says it has to be the Rebbe? Maybe it's the Baal Shem Tov, maybe it's the Arizal, maybe it's this one, maybe it's that one. And the Rebbe explains this. This, if we would only learn the Sichos, we would see it. The Rebbe explains this clearly, that yes, before Mashiach is going to come, there's going to be the concept of Tchias HaMeisim, where Moshe Rabbeinu, Ubonav Imai, and the Rebbe explains that all the tzaddikim and Gedolei Yisrael from previous generations are going to come back. This is before his galus of Mashiach. And if you have a lineup, who gets the title Vadai or Cheskas? Somebody that didn't have it before? Somebody who passed on his baton already? Or as the Rebbe himself says in Tovshin und Beis, that the reason you had the concept of Uvo HaShemesh, because there was someone else to Vizorach HaShemesh. The Rebbe says in our generation it's a different story. There's no Vizorach HaShemeshes. This is it. There's no next generations here. There's no one to pass this on to. This is it. Therefore the Rebbe concludes there is no Uvo HaShemesh either. So ich verstehe das nicht, it doesn't change it. Just because the kid doesn't understand Einstein's theory of relativity doesn't mean it's not happening. Just because a lot of people over here don't know that we're twisting and turning at the speeds that I said before doesn't mean we're not turning. I think, therefore, that if we think that we can make shtick and play around to mit Rebben, to mit Ninyan, or with the Bechlalde Tahalicha in Yanim, with the procedure of things the way they're developing right before our very own face, and that we can fool somebody, we're making a big mistake. There was once a trainee in a major corporation, and he was working his way up to the hierarchy into the management departments. And he got in there already. Now he's a groiser macher already. So he wanted to call his mishoris, his shmendrik, his secretary, to go bring him a cup of coffee one day. But being new in the company and not being familiar with the extension system of the company, he pressed the wrong extension. On the other end of the extension, the boss answered, the chief executive officer answers the phone. He didn't think twice that he made a mistake, so he says, Yukul, go bring me a cup of coffee. The boss, obviously he's the CEO, gets angry and he starts screaming and says, do you know who you're talking to? You realize he hung up the phone. Now he's dead scared what's going to happen with his job. The boss knows who he is, and this is what he did. He's going to throw him out tomorrow morning. So now he wanted to test the boss. So he picks up the phone, dials the same extension again, and he starts screaming at the boss, do you know who you're talking to? So the boss says no. He says, good. And he hung up the phone. If we think that we're going to hit an extension and that the boss doesn't know who he's talking to, therefore we can do all the shtick we want, it's not going to work. Not in this case, and it's not going to work. So we might as well just do the things as told and have that discipline as the Rebbe himself told the Shluchim at a Kinnis HaShluchim, and again it was mentioned here over this weekend, that we have to remember that an Eved and a Shliach have two different connotations. On one hand, the Shliach has his own mind, and he can set himself away and do whatever he wants to. On the other hand, he's a Shliach from someone else. He's going b'koyach ha-mishaleach, he has to be bottled to the Mishaleach. And in essence, if a Shliach does something on his own volition, on his own decision process making, he's oy Shliach. So we can't play kunsten and shtick and any of that stuff. But we see Eliezer did something a little bit further. When Eliezer was told to speak, the first words out of Eliezer's mouth was, Eved Avraham Anoichi. The Shliach from his perspective. Forget about how the Rebbe looks at us. But from our perspective, we have to look back and say, Eved Avraham Anoichi. You know, a Shliach, according to Halacha, can be greater than his Mishaleach. And that happens every day. A person comes to the Rav and he says, write me a get. The Shliach, in this case the Rav, can be, in most cases, is greater than the Mishaleach. An Eved cannot be greater than his master. We have to remember that besides the fact that we cannot insert our own deis, we have no minds of our own, we are totally bottled to the Rebbe, but the only way we can constantly remember this is not by knowing that we are a Shliach of the Rebbe, because then kriegt you eine kapoich a bissel the godless of your own. And therefore you think you can make your own decisions. We have to remember, Eved Avram Anoichi, that we are nothing more than Eved Avram. We don't have our own minds. We have no mindset of our own. There's no way that a person can think he's great. We talk about physicality. I look for these things constantly because I write a lot about it. And I watch these things that are developing out there in the street, in the scientific world and in other places, because it sort of is a little bit of indicative of what the Rebbe keeps on telling you. Open your eyes and you'll see that you have Mamish Yemais HaMashiach in front of your nose. Not too long ago, there was a scientific magazine that had an interesting story, a front page cover. Has a picture of the Har HaBayis, has a picture of the Beis HaMikdash, but which Beis HaMikdash? The Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi. And he writes an article the following. There's a guy in Israel who is very, very enamored by holograms. Very much into this light business. And ever since a kid, he was fascinated with the Beis HaMikdash. Not a from person at all. But he was always fascinated with that holy temple. And he learned Tanakh, and he learned here, and he learned every place in all the sources what the Beis HaMikdash looked like, the Beis HaMikdash of Shlomo Melech, obviously. And he developed himself a hologram. And in conjunction with the Arabs, which is I'm interested anyway, in conjunction with the Arabs, he decided to be able to make this hologram on top of the Har HaBayis. And there's a picture. You can see at night. Obviously during the day it's a little bit hard. At night, one night, I guess he tested it to see how it would work. It looks like the Beis HaMikdash is suspending from the heavens down onto the Har HaBayis. This is something that's not coming. This is something that's not coming. Stamazoi. Everything is Bashgacha Protis. And it's interesting because we say on Tisha B'Av, and actually it's brought already in regard to the question of Yivnei Beis HaMikdash B'Mkaimai, the question is that the Rebbe is going to build the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi. V'eish Yitzata, or v'eish Ata Osid Livnoisa. You were the one that consumed the Beis HaMikdash through flame, and through flame you are going to bring this Beis HaMikdash back from the heavens anyway. Here you see already in Gashmi's Ha'olam a scenario where an individual who's not even forming, he probably doesn't even know what to do, he's definitely not a Mashiachist, that's for sure, is already sitting now and trying to figure out how to make a suspended Beis HaMikdash come down from the heavens to settle down on the Har HaBayis. So where do we go with this? Where does this take us? We have to remember two things. In the mitzvah of Machzis HaShekel, I'm sure every one of you know this, in the mitzvah of Machzis HaShekel, it doesn't say that a person should give a Chatzi Shekel. It says Machzis HaShekel. It says in Sforim why Machzis HaShekel. It says in Sforim that the reason for Machzis is 5 letters. A Mem, a Ches, a Tzadik, a Yud, and a Sof. The Tzadik is the middle letter. You have 2 letters on one side, 2 letters on the other side, the Tzadik is in the middle. And what Sforim said that the Rebishter was sort of alluding to the fact by saying and remembering in the same vein of talking Vayaminu B'Hashem of Moshe Avdei is the following. That when there's a Tzadik, and if a person is kosher to the Tzadik, if he's connected to the Tzadik, the closest 2 letters to the Tzadik in the word Machzis is Chai, a Ches and a Yud, then you're living. And if you remove yourself from the Tzadik, you may be existing, but the further 2 letters from the Tzadik is a Mem and a Tov, is Meis. If anyone wants to live Chaim Besorim as we all want to have healthy life, you have to connect yourself to that tzaddik. And as I said earlier, red sich nicht ein that you're going to take over here a little bit of a survey and a search and go find yourself a tzaddik shopping. There is no such mitzvah. There's one Nosi Hadoyer. That's it. There is only one way to connect ourselves to the tzaddik. And if we have sveikis in this whole concept, that can also happen. It happens constantly. It happened in Mitzrayim. It happened in Mitzrayim already. You remember I told you the way the word Atzei Shittim came from, right? And that these were just a few Mishagoyim that did not want to allow Paroi to destroy the Arzei Levonim that Yankov Avinu brought to Mitzrayim because of these people, because of their steadfast emunah that the Jews are going to go out of Mitzrayim one good day and that they're going to have to build a Mishkan. They fought, and because of their Mishagas, eventually these Eitzim were called Atzei Shittim. So the emunah by these people were phenomenal. The emunah by Jews in general was phenomenal. Yet we know there was a Makas B'chayres. Why was there a Makas B'chayres? As the Chumash tells us, that there were enough Jews, as a matter of fact, 80% that had Tzveikus and did not want to leave. Zochanas Hadoga. They wanted to sit in Mitzrayim. So in order for not to make a big tzimis also, the Rebishter was as sensitive as the Rebbe. He made Makas B'chayres, knocked them off the way, and therefore V'chamushim all of Bnei Yisrael, only the last 20% of the Jews. Could you imagine how powerful the emunah by these 20% was? Tremendous! From deswegen 7 days later, Rabbi Zilberstein mentioned Thursday that you had 4 kittas. They saw that they're stuck by the Yamsuf, and all of a sudden became 4 kittas. And all of the 4 kittas were trying to figure out ways how can they overcome this calamity, not figuring for sure with Amunah that the Eibishter told them to go, he's going to take them. Whether we should go back, we should jump into this, commit suicide, whatever the story was, there was shyness in Amunah. What happened here 7 days ago? These were the most powerful Maiminim. 7 days. Forget about 10 years. 7 days. This is a weakness of man. We are kosher lamata. We are tied to Gashmias and Gashmias rules over us. Rabbi Kupchik. Rabbi Kupchik told a story over here over the weekend to Rabbi Paris, whose grandfather ate upstairs with the Rebbe one Yontif and made a comment to Rab Shmuel Levittin, who was a very wise man. He said to him, you think that we saw the Rebbe? These Bochim who didn't go upstairs really see the Rebbe. Why? Because he says, we already been tainted by seeing the Rebbe, how he sits by a table and he eats and he's making Kiddush. We are already making the Rebbe physical. Therefore, we're already looking at the Rebbe ein bisschen mit unsere grobe Augen. These kids who don't see the Rebbe, who haven't seen at that point, and I'm talking for today too, to them, the Rebbe was Kulei Ruchnis then, the Rebbe is Kulei Ruchnis now, although physically Hebeg of Gashmi. There's no shaylas. There's no physicality to be tainted by. And this fake is that anyone can have, even in that 7-day period that happened then, was because they were tainted by Gashmis that happened. They saw an army coming to chase them. Their physical, their kosher lamato, they got carried away. There's only one answer to that, is being kosher to the tzaddik. Then you're chai. You're living with it. The Rebbe has told us so many things over these 40-something years that we heard him speak to us. Not once did the Rebbe mislead us. Why would anybody have the wildest imagination that there's some mislead here? That there's some fantasy here? That there's some dream over here? I told you the story, but I'm going to end with it anyway. By Fabren, you don't make cheshbonis whether you said it or not. I'm going to finish with this story. In New York, there's an activist, big activist. Many of you know him. His name is Avi Weiss. Avi Weiss has a busy schedule. He told me once the story, and I thought there's a tremendous lesson over here. Avi Weiss lives in New York, but his siblings live throughout the United States. Several years ago, his parents made Aliyah to Israel. And once every few years, they come for a visit. Obviously, being that he lives in New York and the plane usually lands in Kennedy Airport, he has the schus to be the first one to host them, to pick them up from the airport, and to be with him for the first, and then they travel around to the rest of the children. So he tells me the story that one day he gets a telephone call from his parents. His parents say, Avi, we're arriving Wednesday night with this and this flight. Or Wednesday afternoon, whatever it was, with this and this flight. Avi, respect for his parents, because he's so busy, gets into the office, looks around at his calendar, sees everything that he has scheduled for that day and for that time, and he shifts it around. Postpones it, makes it earlier, whatever he could do just to clear the calendar so that he can go to the airport to bring his parents home. Late Tuesday night, Avi gets a phone call from his parents. Avi, we can't come with this flight, but we're coming tomorrow, Thursday, same flight, same time. And Avi starts telling his father, you know, I'm a busy guy. I cleared the whole calendar for you guys. I love you. I really want to be there to pick you up. I really love you. I care for you so much. But you know, you're an American. And I pushed everything off for Thursday, so now my Thursday's days become so scheduled and so tight, I just can't do it. So when you arrive, take a taxi, I'll pay for it. And the father gets a little bit annoyed with him and starts again, Avi, it's not my fault. Your mother didn't feel so well. We had no choice. We couldn't take this flight. We're coming tomorrow and be there. And again, Avi starts begging and pleading with his parents, I love you, but what can we do? And then he says, he hears his father responding, he says, Avreimale! That reminded him when he was a little kid, when the Tat had geschrien, or his mother was screaming, take out the garbage, so he knew what was coming now. And his father says to him, stop loving me, just get to the airport and pick me up. Ask any chassid today. Any chassid, I don't care if he says Yechi 55 times a day, doesn't say Yechi once a day. If he loves the Rebbe, I have no doubt in my mind what the answer is going to be. The Rebbe told us that he was coming with a flight, and he wants us to pick him up at the airport. We cleared our schedule. We were all ready at the time. There's no question in anyone's mind. People were standing and waiting, and here it is, it's happening. Tafshin Beis comes around. The flight got delayed a little bit. But the Rebbe still told us, we're coming in the next flight. Jetzt after Gimel Tammuz hebt sich schon an der Geschäfte. Cham Yankel, Tatenyo, I love you, but take a taxi. And everybody is starting with all the terutzimlich of why he cannot do what he has to do to go to the airport and personally be mekabel upon him the Rebbe. Yet the Reiner, and they all sound good. I'm so busy, I turned my schedule, I moved it up ahead, I don't have any time. Everybody sounds good. But let me guarantee you that the Rebbe is screaming to each and every one of us, don't love me, just do what I told you. Because I have one more theory to ask you. And this is my Teurelach, and I know some people are going to kill me probably for this. It's my personal Teurelach. I'm telling you this up in advance. The Rebbe says that nothing can happen to a tzaddik unless the tzaddik gives permission. The Rebbe said this many times. Gimel Tammuz had to happen with the Rebbe's permission. Couldn't happen on its own. What happened over here? What happened over here? My personal theory, and I may be a grober young, they're along with me. In the Yalkut Shimoini, about 23 lines before that famous Yalkut Shimoini Higias Man Giulaska, there's another piece over there. In that Yalkut Shimoini it says the following: that Moshiach is going to come to the Eibishter with a tainer. Enough to keep Jews in Golus. Enough. And the Eibishter is going to respond back to him and saying, Efraim Meshichi. This is how I set it up, Mesheshis and Mebreshis. This is how it has to be. And Mashiach comes back and screams, well, why do Jews have to suffer and struggle? The Eibishter says, this is how I set it up, there's only one way out. If you want to take the pain on yourself, that's okay. And Moshiach, because of caring for Klal Yisrael, says, I'm ready to do that. And the words of the Yalkut Shimoini is that the Eibishter is going to give Moshiach hazetz in his neck, and he's going to collapse, and he's going to go into tremendous pain to the extent that he's going to lose his speech. At which point, Moshiach is going to come back to the Eibishter and say, this is also too much for me now. Enough is enough. To which the response is going to be, Higias Man Giulaska. The Rebbe was arguing with the Eibishter for years. We need Mashiach now. The Rebbe tried for years various methods. You're blocking some Jews over there. Some methods of how can we hasten that moment a lot faster. The Rebbe begged by us, open your eyes. The Rebbe was crying and pleading, it should be Chaim Nitzchim Beli Hefsik. The Rebbe was screaming in the 40th year, Hinini Noiselachem Leiv Lodas Ve'naim Lirois was Naim Lishmoya. I'm giving you, just like Moshe Rabbeinu said 40 years into his leadership, the Rebbe was screaming that for an entire year. Open your eyes, your ears, and your hearts. But for some reason we were stupid. We're stupid. We just didn't open our eyes and we didn't pay attention. So the Eibishter finally came, the Rebbe finally came back to the Eibishter and says, you know something, enough is enough. If I have to rely on these stupid dummies, nothing is going to happen. And the Eibishter says, this is the system. It has to happen. This is how it has to happen. Klal Yisrael has to do this. They have to be Mekabel Oil Malchusecha. This is how it is. The Rebbe's a grandfather, the Netzach Yisrael, the Maharal of Prague, writes clearly that for 40 years Moshiach is going to present his credentials. And when the 40 years are up, he is no longer going to be able to do anything anymore, but he's going to have to be Hachtoras Ha'am. And he says, V'hadohu dichsiv hayoim, today Moshiach can reveal himself in Bekoiloi Sishmo. If you hearken to him, if you accept El Malchusay. And the Rebbe begged, and it still didn't happen. And finally, we see that 40 years into the leadership, the famous Sikh of the Rebbe, I have done everything I could. Asu kol mashi b'choltechem. I can't do anything anymore. You guys have to be Mekabel El HaMalchus. We still didn't get the message for some stupid reason. But the Eibishter says that Klal Yisrael has to go through this process. And finally, there was a tremendous tragedy in Crown Heights. A woman comes home from shopping, and a perpetrator entered her house, struggled with her, and killed her. That happened towards the end of a week. Shabbos, the Rebbe was screaming af Neibishn, if I could use those terms. Wie viel is the Shir Mutchen Yidden in Golis? How much can we already take this? It's the first person I think the Rebbe used the terms Yigiven HaTzadekas. Anybody that ever saw the pictures of that funeral where the Rebbe is walking there, you can see the Rebbe's pain. The Rebbe goes to the Yoel after Shabbos, and the Rebbe collapsed. And that was not a stroke. The diagnosis later from doctors was that was a pre-stroke warning, when in essence what happened, the doctors explained the way this works, is that a vein running up in the neck hardens up a little bit and the blood flow doesn't go and you physically lose consciousness and you collapse. That's what happened. Ephraim Mishichi, if you're willing to accept the pain and agony, then maybe we can make a deal. And the Rebbe agreed. And he got the Zetz in the neck. And we all know what happened 2 days later when Taka had the stroke. He was in tremendous pain and lost the speech. And the Rebbe comes back to the Eibishter and he says, okay, I'm doing it. I'm doing this for Klal Yisrael. Now is the time. And the Eibishter says, no. Jews were screaming, we want Moshiach now, ad Mosai, because you've been telling them to do so. They're not doing so really because they really believe this themselves. They're doing it because you told them to do so. Schreien Sie euch. How many times did the Rebbe say that by Verbringen? The only reason you're screaming ad Mosai is because I'm telling you to. So the Rebbe says he's willing to lose his speech, which he did. And he says, you'll see they'll still scream Yechi anyway. They'll still scream they want Mashiach. And that's what happened. For 2 years, Chassidim was screaming Yechi. Chassidim was screaming Ad Mosai. And nothing happened. And the Rebbe comes back to the Eibishter and he says, take a look. I'm not talking anymore. They're still doing it. And the Eibishter says, yeah, but der macht's mit den Hand. Shackles mit dem Kopf. They're still doing it because you're saying it. Not because they really believe. And the Rebbe says, this is my fantasy. And the Rebbe says, I'll agree for a Gimel Tammuz to happen, where they don't hear me and they don't see me. And they'll still scream Yechi, and they'll still scream Ad Mosai. They take to believe they want it. I'll prove it to you. And the Rebbe agreed to this Gimel Tammuz. I ask each and every one in this room here tonight, do you realize the responsibility that this throws on us? If we don't pursue this and prove the Rebbe right, we're making the Rebbe look like a fool. If we waver an ounce over here with this and don't continue to prove to the Eibishter, at least according to my tzedreta fantasy here, that the Rebbe told them that I'll show you they're going to believe anyway, even without me shouting and shuckling with the head and with the hands, that they are going to believe anyway, we are proving the Rebbe wrong. In this case, it's better for us to prove the Eibishter wrong and the Rebbe right. And as such, we will see tonight these galus of Melech HaMashiach. And I say this is just horrendous, because the question here is, that we have to be moilech. We have to accept El Malchusai. Therefore, again, I ask each and every one to rise here in this achlota and say with me together. Yechi Adonenu Mereinu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMoshiach Li'olam Vod. Yechi Adonenu Mereinu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMoshiach Li'olam Vod. Yechi Adonenu Mereinu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMoshiach Li'olam Vod. L'chaim, and I'm sure that this achlota is going to make it that tonight, before I get onto a plane to get out of here, we'll all go in Manana Shmaya to Yerushalayim, to the Harabayas, to the Beis Hamikdash Ashlishi, and the Rebbe is going to take us out. L'chaim.
Hey, especially for you. Ay, ay, ma, ay, ay, ma, 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 ma. Ay, 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 ma, 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 ma. Ya, ma, ma, ya, da, 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 ya, ma, ya, ma, ya. There is a special request for some Piamenta song. After the whole evening, we can do it.